I'll go ahead and open this meeting for January 16th, 2013. Oceanside City Council, Harbor District, and CDC. Roll call, please.
Mayor Wood.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Feller.
Here.
Councilmember Sanchez. Here. Councilmember Kern.
Here.
Councilmember Feline.
Here. Thank you. City Attorney, please.
The council meet in closed session to discuss item 2 on the agenda, conference with real property negotiator. The properties are the portions of relinquished right-of-way reflected on page 1 of the agenda. The APN numbers are all identified there. Negotiating parties, City of Oceanside and CBS Outdoor, Clear Channel Outdoor Inc., Lamar Outdoor Advertising, Sunray Media LLC, signs of support. Negotiator for the city, Douglas et al., real estate manager. Under negotiations, price and terms for property use agreements. Item 3A, conference of legal counsel on existing litigation in the matter of Dunnex, Cavalier Mobile Estates versus City of Oceanside. That is item 3A1 and 3A2. Item 3B, initiation of litigation by the city pursuant to subdivision C of section 54956.9 of the Government Code in the matter of one case involving 415 Grant Street in the City of Oceanside.
Adjourn to closed session. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. A couple of things first, if I may. If you have a cell phone or a pager, please turn it on vibrate or silent. And Christine, that involves you too. Anyhow, with that, roll call, please.
Yes. Mayor Wood.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Feller. Here. Councilmember Feline. Here. Councilwoman Sanchez.
Here.
Councilmember Kern.
Here.
Great.
Thank you. Zach, would you please notify that I think item 11 has been pulled by staff for the public that might be here for that?
Yes, consent calendar items 6 and 11 have been pulled from the council item.
The 6th.
Move approval for balance.
I'll second. Second. Any public on this one, Zach?
No public.
Any council members? If not, please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. When you get the chance, Mr. Clerk, item number 14, please.
Item number 14 is approval to reject all proposals received for the fleet maintenance request for proposals RFP and continue to provide these services by city staff.
Kyle, how are you doing?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. In an effort to identify potential cost savings and reduce the budget through outsourcing, staff solicited proposals from private companies in June of 2012 to perform fleet maintenance services. These services are currently performed by city staff, which consists of a supervisor and 12 employees, and includes providing scheduled preventative maintenance, repairs, towing, parts management, generator maintenance, fuel management, and other fleet services to an operation which includes 480 vehicles and pieces of heavy equipment. Staff only received one proposal and conducted an interview with the proposer, First Vehicle Services. In-house costs were then compared to contractor costs to see if outsourcing was cost-effective. I've placed a exhibit up here on the screen which shows city staff costs, which includes labor, parts, supplies, outside services, and incidentals, as well as first-year contractor costs. The city staff costs are roughly $1.86 million. The contractor costs are roughly $1.77 million. So the potential first-year savings to the city would be just under $95,000. This second exhibit shows costs that would remain even if the services were outsourced. The fleet supervisor would be retained to manage the contract. We have internal service charges for admin allocation, IT, debt service on the building, which would remain. We still have our fuel budget and overtime and the pension obligation fund, bond, excuse me. And at the bottom of this exhibit shows the contractor cost for, he bid it on a 5-year proposal. So you see the first through the 5th year costs, and his total cost was just over $9.3 million. Staff has found it more cost-effective to continue to perform these services with city staff. The recommendation to not outsource this program was based on several factors. Current salaries proposed by the contractor seem too low by industry standards to attract competent mechanics and technicians. Staff called several private garages and found the proposed average hourly rates to be approximately $5 an hour below industry standard for the San Diego area. Increasing each employee's hourly rate by $5 per hour would raise contractor personnel costs by almost $125,000, which would eliminate any savings to the city. Non-target costs, including emergency work, repairs for accidents, theft, vandalism, misuse, directed work, and other unforeseen repairs, are unpredictable, and this uncertainty could cause costs to creep higher. Staff called references provided by the contractor and found several cities were generally satisfied with their services, but some indicated costs crept higher over time. Some cities which previously outsourced these services had changed to again provide service with city staff. Staff was told more bids weren't received because others felt there wouldn't be significant savings to the city to justify submitting a proposal. The proposers also indicated it typically made sense to outsource when customers weren't happy with the service, and this has not been the case. City staff is providing a good service to other departments and has been recognized as one of the 100 best fleets in North America for 6 consecutive years by Government Fleet Magazine. Fleet maintenance is a large operation with many responsibilities, and there's a real concern that costs could creep higher over time, providing no savings to the city. Staff recommends that the City Council approve the rejection of all proposals received for the fleet maintenance RFP and continue to provide the services in-house. That's it.
Thank you very much. Have a seat, sidebar. Mr. Cook, do we have public?
Yes, we have one public on this item. Mr. Chester Mordesini.
Good evening, Chester. I see a few friends in the audience from you.
Yeah, we certainly have a few of our guys here today. Good evening, council members and Mayor Jim Wood. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on this issue. OCEA and Teamsters Local 911 are supporting staff's recommendation to reject the request for proposal on this particular outsourcing. One of the things you have to keep in mind, you know, fleet services is your backbone of your whole public services operation. We got 12 guys that are all ASE certified to the max. The city of Oceanside is approximately the 134th largest city in the country. We have 13 employees that handle the fleet maintenance, and they do an excellent job. They've been, you know, recognized nationwide for their service in the top 100 agencies for fleet services in the country. And again, for the size of this city, you have basically 13 employees that are doing the backbone work of all your public works to keep all the equipment on the road. All of those issues that happen in the early morning when it's cold and things won't start, we've got 12 guys that are out there making things work. One of the most important things to recognize when you're talking about public employees in this day and age, and especially in this fleet services, you look at 800,000 in outsourcing already, that this fleet services has already found those areas where they can save the city money by going to outside vendors and having some of that work done. So basically, you know, that organization, the 12 guys and the supervisor down there are running a lean, mean, you know, operation. Where it makes sense to outsource, they've found ways to save the city money at the tune of $800,000, and for a $95,000 savings in approximately 1 year, it makes no sense to put the employees out of work for the sake of saving $95,000. And if you look at the contract, after the first year, there's a CPI provision, and slowly but surely that 95,000 will be eaten up in future CPI increases over the years. Plus, once you lose your fleet services, the startup costs, and I've said this before, are going to be astronomical. And once your customer base with your residents start to see the lack of service, they're going to come unglued, and we'll be back to looking at what are we going to do now. And when you look at the one bidder, there's already been places like Brawley, California, that have tried this contractor and ended up going back to developing their own in-house fleet services. So again, OCA and Teamsters are supporting staff's recommendation to reject the RFP. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more public on this item?
Pardon?
No more public on this item.
Spider here. Councilmember Sanchez, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is one of our great programs for the City of Oceanside that we are very, very proud of. Perhaps it's times like this that you do some kind of a bidding out to see if there are any, can anyone else do it better? And we have found out, no, there is nobody else that can do it better. So you guys, rock. I'm going to go ahead and do the motion here, which is that we approve the rejection of all proposals received for the fleet management RFP and continue to provide the services by city staff, which is excellent service. Thank you.
I'll second that. Thank you. Councilmember Kern, please.
Thank you. I'm going to support the motion. This is one of the processes we need to constantly look at. The idea that right now, when we have a single bidder, the idea that approving a single bidder is never a good idea. We need competitive bidding. I like going through the process to evaluate what we spend and where we spend it. The comments made about outsourcing bits and pieces as we go along that we find more economical to do within the department, I think that we need to encourage that. What most people want from the city of Oceanside, or any city for that matter, is to provide services at the most economical cost. And I think every year, probably not fleet services this year, but come back in about 3 years and reevaluate where we are with fleet services in compared to the marketplace. The idea that cost containment is going to be one of our big issues in government for the next 5 to 8 years, because the economy is not improving. And so one of the reasons that we even discussed the idea of going out to the private sector to provide services is it more economical for us as a city to get those services from an outside source. Evidently, after the evaluation, it is not in this particular case. But it doesn't mean that we should stop looking or have fleet say we're home free, we can go back and we can spend more. No, you really, on the individual basis, and I see a lot of people out there that I really need you to think every day, how do we conserve the money that the taxpayers give us to provide those services? So that's what what we're really trying to do, whether it's fleet, general membership, police, fire. Every city employee and everybody at this dais should have that attitude. How do we provide service to the city at the cheapest cost we can to the taxpayer? But we have to maintain a level of service. That was the criteria that we always have to do, is maintain the level of service in fleet, maintain the level of service in fire and police. But always evaluate your processes, make sure that we're doing the right thing for the taxpayer. So, but I will support the motion.
Councilmember Feline, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like a description of some of the $800,000 that was mentioned in services or items that have been outsourced already.
Okay, parts, supplies, glass work, body work. There's several services that almost no shop does in-house. They farm it out to someone else, so those are some examples.
Okay. Now, is it your contention that the city costs won't be going up at all over the next 5 years?
You can say that personnel costs shouldn't be going up over the next few years. I don't think there's a raise in anyone's budget anytime soon. There could be other costs within the city that could go up. The contractor, his CPI was between 2.5 and 2.9%, so I can't really say if our costs will go up that much, but as far as personnel costs, they shouldn't be.
Okay. And, you know, my pet peeve is always the unfunded pension liability. So how is it that we've calculated a negative $10,000 for unfunded pensions?
I think I'll defer to the city manager on that one.
Honorable Mayor, council members, the finance director, in consultation with both PERS and we have hired an outside, Mr. Bartell, that will be preparing a detailed presentation for you within the next 2 months. But we provided you a memorandum of how that number came about, and it's based on the current level of funding and the unfunded portion of the actuarial that PERS provides us. So it does not take into account a reduced discount rate. It is still at the 7.5% discount rate. If in fact those, and again, we only have the ability to translate what PERS gives us, and I understand that there's some issue in regards to what PERS actual rate of return is and how that would affect us. If in fact PERS changes their methodology, then certainly the numbers that we're providing you here are going to change. So at this point, and I can get you another copy of that if you'd like with that background, but at this point what we're doing is evaluating that cost based on what PERS is giving us right now on our actuarial that we get.
Yeah, I just put me under the skeptical category here, and I think you know, because of this, I don't think the public is getting true numbers here in terms of what the true city cost is, because we all know there's a huge bubble that continues to develop with this unfunded pension liability. CalPERS has a plan to kick the can down the road as long as they can and not be honest in their rate of return analysis and basically hide the true cost of the pensions. And as we know, if we wanted to get out of our system, CalPERS doesn't use the 7.5% that they tell us to use. They use, I believe it's 3.8%, which actually by some strange coincidence is what most outside experts recommend CalPERS uses to compute its rate of return. And when you use the honest numbers, you get a much different outlook on what unfunded pensions are going to be and what the cost of the city is going to be. And I'm just very uncomfortable on this item. I plan to abstain, and I think we need to you know, get a lot more serious with how we're computing these unfunded pension liabilities, and you know, so we can have an honest comparison with outside costs. Thank you.
Mr. Feller, please.
The fiscal impact, it says, based on the current MOU language, that there would not appear to be increases in staff salaries. That's our staff, is that correct? Is that what you meant?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at this point there's not much optimism about having a pay increase for anybody. You know, it feels like it's better a little bit, but I'm not ready to admit to it. Up where it says these costs will remain if services are outsourced, that's $2 million. That's either way, right? It's either contract?
Yes, sir. Like our fuel budget, that doesn't go away whether we outsource or not. We still have to buy fuel for all the departments. We still have to have someone to manage the contract. We still have to pay the debt service on our garage. So, yes, sir, those don't go away.
So totally that budget's in the almost $4 million.
It's just over $4 million.
100 best fleets in North America for 6 consecutive years. I think that says a lot for us. And you're talking about 480 vehicles in the staff report, of whether it's a car, a truck, a generator. That's all the pieces of equipment, including fire trucks, everything going, and that's done by 12 people.
Yes, sir. Actually, the generators and other smaller pieces of equipment is not including in it, but it's Vectors, fire trucks, police vehicles, bulldozers, all the rest of it.
Do they work 7 days a week? Is there a rotation, or is it 5 days and somebody's on call for the weekends?
We have someone on call for the weekends. They work 2 shifts, Monday through Friday. It's about an hour and a half they work, one shift starts about an hour and a half earlier than the other shift, so there's someone in the garage about 11 hours, 12 hours.
Well, I think it's important to note that that we are a large city, and I don't think you can rely on 24-hour needs with a part, alternate operator. They just don't impress me that is going to happen. I know as in my trucking business, I wanted my trucks to go 24/7, but in reality, that's not what you can afford to do if there isn't something going on. So my guess is if you had an outside operator, you'd probably have a lot of tows going to the yard and in the off hours, and you'd probably end up with considerably different results in turnaround on the staff time. So the dollar amount that Councilmember Feline is referring to, I mean, would that go away if we eliminated the jobs?
Honorable Mayor, council members, no, our unfunded liability to PERS would continue. What would happen in reducing the number of city employees, your long-term costs would eventually start to go down. But the current level of unfunded liability and the current issues that are facing us as well as other cities would continue to go on, even if you eliminated every city employee.
And I think we've already gone down that road with the second tier system, bringing on new employees at a different tier, and I think something gives in that regard. So I just, at this point, I'm happy to support staff's recommendation. I just, I'm concerned that only one contractor bid. They only bid, and from my information, they came in $5 less than a guy like Rick Singh out there at Nasrtec, and his employees work for $5 more than these guys work for this outside contractor. So I think this is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Please vote.
Motion approved, 4-0. Feline abstain.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate it. Zach, when you get the opportunity, 15.
Yes. Item number 15 is approval to relocate Fire Station 8 from 4927 Oceanside Boulevard to 1935 Avenida del Oro, Suite F. Approval to appropriate $76,760 from the fund, Public Facility Fees Fund, to the Fire Department for costs associated with moving the fire station and securing a building lease, and authorization for the city manager to execute the building lease.
Good afternoon, Chiefs. Plural.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Jimmy, show them how to do that, will you?
Yeah, Jimmy, can you... It's always an honor to be here, standing as the Fire Chief of Oceanside. I'm very proud to be the Fire Chief of Oceanside and serve this great city. Today, the Fire Department is here to recommend that the City Council approve relocating Fire Station 8, temporary Fire Station 8, from 4927 Oceanside Boulevard to 1935 Avenida del Oro, Suite F, and appropriating $76,760 from the fund, 503.3020, Public Facility Fees Fund to the Fire Department for costs associated with moving the fire station and securing a building lease, and authorization for city manager to execute the building lease. I've just put together a quick PowerPoint and regarding moving Fire Station 8. This was a recommendation that was made from the Tri-Data study that took place in April 2012. This map here shows the existing stations throughout Oceanside with the red dots. Currently, the location is on the 4900 block of Oceanside Boulevard, which is the COC, City Operations Center for the city. The new proposed location is it's close to the intersections of College and Oceanside Boulevard, Avenida del Oro, just to kind of get your bearing in that area. You can see that currently the existing station sits right on the border of Vista and Oceanside. And although that's not the primary reason to move the station is to reduce some of the service to Vista, the primary reduce is to improve the response coverage and response times for more of our city, more centrally located. This map here is a real good map that was provided by Tri-Data in April 2012. In the light shades of green, it demonstrates two station coverage within 6-minute response times. In the dark area, it would say that 3 stations can cover that area in the 6-minute response times. The other gray areas are kind of the greater than the 6-minute response times for all of the other stations. The real important slide is this next slide, which demonstrates the actual physical move. In the pink would be where it currently sits, and you can see the majority of that response coverage in the pink would be in the Vista area, and there is some in the Oceanside area, but when you shift the station in the blue area, it shows greater coverage to that Rancho del Oro area, Costa Serena, and some of those industrial areas up in Rancho del Oro. The important thing to note as well, that in the gray area is also 5-minute response coverage for most of the other Oceanside stations. So you can see as we shift that, if you made that all gray, it really improves the coverage for our fire department and our city. This is just a map again to show you that the new location would be at Avenida del Oro, and approximately 0.7 miles. Some of you were on the council at the time, there was a piece of property donated to the fire department and the city for permanent Fire Station 8, and it's approximately 0.7 miles from that location. It was an outstanding location. It still is for a permanent fire station. But as economic times dictate, we just don't have the funds to build it right now. The reason why we're asking for a 7-year lease is it's my hope that within 5 years, with improvement with some of the buildings and maybe cranes that are going downtown, that the CIP can increase in funding, and right at that 5-year mark, maybe we can embark on building a new station, which takes about 1.5 to 2 years, and so that would give us a 7-year time at the new facility. The new facility is, we're currently in the process of an administrative CUP through the building department. We were able to reduce it from a full CUP because it was less than 5,000 square feet. The original building actually ended up being 5,038 square feet. We went in and talked to the owners of the building, and we were able to kind of shave off 38 square feet, or 39 square feet, and get it down to 4,999 square feet. I have heard from George Buell that there shouldn't be any issue with that as CUP. So that's pretty much all I have as far as the presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be available at the sidebar.
No public on the side?
Yes.
No public on the side.
Okay, thank you very much. Back to the City Council. Esther, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and move approval. We're actually very lucky to have such a great chief in Chief Darrell Hebert. So always looking out for our residents, and certainly our highest concern is for our city residents. Vista residents may have, they'll be serviced, but they will not get the better service that I believe we provide to our residents. 6-minute response times does make a difference between, quality of life, living, not living. So, moving approval. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll second that, please. Thank you very much. Councilmember Kern, please.
Thank you. Chief, I like your optimism that 5 years from now that we can have the money to actually build a fire station. But being a little skeptical of that, is there an option after 5 years? After the end of 5 years, is there a renewal on the lease, that type of?
Yeah, absolutely. They said that they would extend the lease longer if it's needed, and we can, any year that we want to sit down and renegotiate, they're open to that.
Well, is there a set option?
Within
5 years, is there an option on our part, option on their part? How is that, City Attorney? I
believe it's a straight 7-year lease.
Oh, okay. And then
you have to renegotiate.
And we would renegotiate, what, a couple years out, we would probably have an...
Absolutely, yeah, that's...
Yeah, I like the idea that we're starting to implement some of the stuff in the Tri-Data study. I know it's going to take a while. You mentioned Director Buell, they did the Matrix study years ago, and we're just, tonight, we're actually adopting part of that, what they did in the Matrix study. So over a period of time, we're gradually being more effective, more efficient. The only thing that really bothers me, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on the other issue, is that you had to go and do this song and dance about 39 feet for administrative approval, not administrative approval. So the idea of, somehow we could have got around that. I hopefully that 39 feet's not critical. I toured the building. I don't know where you block that off. Some hallway gets closed. But the idea that we would do that just to get around the approval process to make it administrative versus having the building the way that you would want it more effective. So I guess that's my question. Is that 39 feet that critical?
No, it was actually a hallway area that extends between the two buildings. You remember walking in that hallway area, we just shortened that up. And the building department has been very accommodating, as well as engineering and planning. They've really been working with us. And on my part, as far as the CUP, I assumed it was under the 5,000 square feet, and building department has been great with working with us. But I agree with you that when you're talking about 38 square feet, is there something that might be able to be done? Absolutely.
So, and I guess the last thing, and it just is for the public's edification, the idea of when does the lease actually start? Obviously there's tenant improvements that we have to do because we just can't, one day you're going to be at one station, next day you have to be at the other. So there's going to be a building time because we can't say, okay, we're just going to close Fire Station 8 till the new one gets built. We're going to have to do that. So how does that work? Just to let people know how.
We certainly would not shut down the other station until we're fully ready to get into the new temporary station. There's some temporary improvements that they have to do that's going to take probably about 2 months. My administrative chief just wrote down March 1st of 2013. They are saying they can be complete with the building by then. But we don't have to exit the other building at all. It'll happen that the transfer will happen within 1 day. The units will still be available, so there will be no loss of coverage from that station at all during that time.
Okay, no, that's fine. After touring temporary Fire Station 8, it's not very good working conditions. The idea that, so I think this is a much better thing, and being within 7/10 of our desire, the Tri-Data study about being within that service area, I think that's probably more important, because like I said before, it's the amount of service that people need, especially if the industrial park starts doing better, then we're going to have more calls for service there than we do now. So I think our calls for service are probably pretty light there now because there's a lot of empty space, just like our lot there is empty. So I will I will support the motion. So, thank you.
Councilmember Feller, please.
The calls that you have going to Vista out of that 1,400 and whatever it was, 14, I can't remember, the 82 or something like that. How many of those are going into Vista? Do we know?
489 today.
So we're averaging, including that, about 4 calls a day out of that station. Is that about right?
That's probably close, maybe a little less.
So does moving it to that new location cannibalize on other stations that are busier, or are we still going to be going to Vista 400 or so?
Well, you know, it'll be interesting to see, and it's really hard to project that because we could go into Vista based upon one of their units near the border being busy on another area. So that's really hard to project. We're going to analyze it really closely. I would imagine we're still going to go into Vista, like they're still going to come in to Oceanside. It certainly will probably reduce some of Station 4 going north under the bridge at 78 because of some of the traffic in that area and how busy that intersection gets. It does reduce the travel time, which increases the response times for 4 to get to some of that Costa Serena up in that area.
Probably another reason for Rancho Del Oro interchange. I'm not sure I can get into that.
I think it'll also probably reduce some of 6's as well coming up the hill up Mesa.
What is the increase to the bottom line for that station then? If you're going to a lease as opposed to a corner cubbyhole of the COC?
We're looking at the first 3 years at $51,000 a year, and then year 4 through 7, approximately $58,000 a year.
And that's an increase?
It goes up from year...
Is it an increase from what you have now?
Yes, certainly it is.
All right. I support this. I hope the guys aren't too comfortable with being next to the police officers association there.
We get along real well with our police officer brothers, but I don't think we'll have to worry about that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Feline.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say this seems like a great opportunity for a relatively small cost to improve coverage for the city as a whole, and while it directly benefits the Rancho Del Oro area, it certainly has ripple effects through all the fire stations in the city to improve coverage for the citizens all over. Would I be correct in that assessment?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and so yeah, I certainly support this, and I think this is a positive development that will improve the city, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zach, we're going to recess until 5 o'clock. We have some things to do out in the hallway for presentations, and we'll be back at 5 o'clock. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Second half of the City Council meeting. If I may, for housekeeping, if you have a cell phone or a pager, could you put on vibrate or silent? We'd appreciate that. And we're going to start off with the invocation and pledge of allegiance. And when we do that, we'd appreciate that you all stand. Afterwards, you can be seated, and we'll go on with the council meeting. So with that, because we all stand, and Valerie, could you set it up, please?
Yes, leading us this evening for the invocation is Cantor Larry Cornett of Congregation B'nai Tikva.
As we approach this new year and we look to improve ourselves, one of the questions asked is, What is the benefit for doing good and what is the penalty for doing wrong? The benefit for doing good is the propensity to do it again, and the penalty for doing wrong is the same. When faced with decisions, if we can achieve better decisions than we did the first time, that's the true gift. And in the spirit of improving oneself for this new year, let us pray. Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Clerk, and members of the City Council, attendees, in that spirit we pray, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. We come together in this hall to do the people's work. We pray that you remind us and teach us always to look to make better choices that we can be proud of. One of your greatest blessings is the ability to learn and to strive and to improve ourselves, so that when approached by choices we may have made in the past that might have been ill-conceived, we choose to make better ones. Remind us always that it is the people's work and that the decisions made here have far-reaching effects on all of Oceanside's citizenry. We pray that this body understands how to disagree without being disagreeable, that justice tempered with mercy is one of your greatest gifts. Never as a people do we stand so tall as when we reach down to help others. We ask you divine protection for those public servants who put their lives in harm's way on a daily basis, to keep us safe and free, and to those who serve and protect us at all levels, including our police, our fire, and other public safety departments. As a city that is host to much of our nation's military, we ask you divine care for those men and women who are serving and have served in our country's military. We ask you to give them the strength and courage and compassion that this nation under your divine providence has exemplified throughout her history, to serve to the best of their ability, honor, and dignity. Remind us all how grateful we can be that we live in the greatest country on earth, and we have made great sacrifices, and the sacrifices of those who have gone before us to keep us this way. We as always ask for us to be reminded of the greatest gifts that we have been blessed with by you. The gifts of peace, peace of mind, of body, and peace of spirit. In our lifetime, where all people of all faiths can live in freedom, which always starts with your gift of understanding. Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom. Blessed are you, the bestower of peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Leading us this evening in our Pledge of Allegiance, we have the following youth: Chloe Steele, Finley Oviedo, and Savannah Flores.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Please got the mic.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hang on here. The pictures are working the right. Ladies and gentlemen, you can be seated, but if your parents want to move around for photographs, be our guest.
Now at this time we're going to go into this evening's presentation, which is honoring Soccer Club of Oceanside's Girl Under 12 All-Star Team. And with us tonight we're going to start with their coach, Les Steele. Their assistant coach is Carlos Flores. And the players are Adelina Manuel, Teari Poti, Alexa McGuinness, Andrea Santiago, Martha Yamasaki, Haley Satterley, Chloe Cleary, Valerie Cortez, Sierra Aldrich, Destiny Modano, Samantha Villa, Viviana Moran, and then of course our three original players who came up for the pledge, Chloe, Finley, and Savannah.
Wow. We have these presentations for sports groups because, as you can see, they represent Oceanside. They have our name, Oceanside, on their jerseys. Local, county, state, and national sometimes. They represent us, so we want to make sure they come in front of a TV audience, get to say hi and thank you to them, and the coaches and the families that get involved. We know how that is. The families are always involved behind the scenes, team moms and everything else, but this is a lovely group of ladies. I'll let the coach explain all those jingle jangles that are around the neck, okay? Coach?
Thank you. We really appreciate being here. Just to tell you a little bit about these young ladies, this is their third tournament. They've been in 3 tournaments so far, and they've won every single tournament that they've been in. It's okay, you can clap. All-Stars is just a team that gets together for a very short amount of time. These young ladies, not only have they won every game except one, they tied 1 game, they've also only had 1 goal scored against them. So we have some soccer fans, I'm sure, in here, the parents certainly, but to understand how great that is it's unbelievably good. So.
Way to go.
We have 1 more tournament we're going to play. I begged the league to allow us to play in 1 more, and they're letting me. So we're in Temecula this weekend. We're going to play some harder competition, so you know, I'm sure we're up for it. And lastly, I just want to say thanks to the parents. Obviously, having you guys bring them in a couple times a week, and you know, over the holiday season, it's a lot to bite off, and these girls really deserve everything they have in front of them. So thank you all very much. Yeah, this is
Let's hear from them, but also I want to get a good picture, ladies. And we're going to set some up. You might want to squeeze in a little bit for a photo op. Folks, you can move around for photos. Remember, 1 photo chip out of a camera can make all the pictures. Looks like we might be finished. Coach, assistant coaches, thank you for bringing. They're a great group, good looking, and look at those medals. Hold them up, girls, along with your thing. Oh boy, representing Oceanside. Thank you. Woo! Bye-bye, girls. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. While we're waiting, Mr. Cook, we're going to have the city attorney go to closed session.
There is no meeting in closed session on item 1. Item 2, the council did meet and give direction to its real estate negotiator regarding the property use agreements for item 2. at the locations identified on page 1 of the agenda. There's no final action to report at this time. With regard to item 3A, 1 and 2, the council did meet to discuss pending litigation in the matter of Dunnex et al. Versus the City of Oceanside in the 2 cases identified. There's no reportable action under the Brown Act under item 3A. With regard to item 3B, the council did meet to discuss initiation of litigation in the matter of 1 case, and the council voted 5-0 to authorize the city attorney to file a lawsuit, civil nuisance abatement action against the owners of the property located at 415 Grant Street, including M&L Financial, Arthur Masaki, Donald Swanson, and Linda Castellanos. Those are individuals who either own or have an interest in the property or control the property. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Zach, could we go to public communications off the agenda, 22?
Yes, we have 3 individuals wishing to speak. They can come up for 3 minutes, and the first individual will be Kathy Nichol, second Francis Kozierski, and third will be Charles McVeigh.
Kathy, good evening.
I don't have any flyers.
Pull that mic down though, Kathy.
Can you hear me? So first, Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff, attendees, and the viewing public, I wanted to thank you for your assistance in getting item number 12 passed. We appreciate it. With the assistance of several volunteers, our staff, our board, and our community, we hope to provide more assistance to you about the upcoming items that I'd like to talk about. As you know, Thursday is Market Day in Oceanside. We do have our day market every Thursday from 9 to 1, and that is over 20 years old with the help of Mark and Suzanne Benedictson, and of course the assistance of the city. And of course the Sunset Market from 5 to 9 p.m., same day on Thursday. Starting this week, we will have our 125th anniversary booth, showing some great pictures of those things that brought Oceanside to this year, our anniversary, our 125th anniversary. The Chamber will also be there selling t-shirts to honor that. We also have great entertainment, retail, lots of great food. It's a great dining experience and entertainment. I also wanted to talk about some upcoming events. In January, Oceanside Photo and Telescope will be hosting an astronomy night on January 24th, which is next Thursday, and also on February 21st. At the end of February, we will be having our 3rd annual Public Safety Night with both Oceanside Fire, Police, and Lifeguards. They'll be there providing a great static display with fire engines, our Police Command Center, lifeguards, water equipment. This is a great time for families to come down and actually see what our safety individuals for our city do a meet and greet, and find out how you can become safer and become part of the safety team. So it's a nice time to meet Oceanside's finest. And of course, all of our information is on our website at msoceanside.com. You can sign up for our newsletter to find out what's going on in downtown, or call us at 760-754-4512. And of course, my last item is the Oceanside Independence Day Parade will be held the Saturday prior to the 4th of July. It is done through Main Street Oceanside by all volunteers. We are in need of committee members and donors for that particular event. We also have about 80 volunteers that help us out on that day. So if you're interested, please contact me at Main Street Oceanside. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
I believe Mr. Francis has not decided to come forward.
I can't hear you very well.
Is Francis Kozierski here? You're the second to speak.
They can't hear you in the audience either, but
Is Francis Kozierski
I don't see
here?
Francis in here.
Yeah, I believe he left. We'll go to the next, was Charles McVeigh.
My name is Charles McVeigh. I reside at 200 North El Camino Real, Oceanside. Mayor, council members, Councilman Kern, and Feline, I agree. You have the power, and rightly so, to remove someone from committees providing there is just and reasonable cause that has been proven. However, when you remove Mayor Wood as Oceanside's representative on SAMDAC, you violated one of the most sacred laws not only of the United States, but the civilized world. It is called the innocent until proven guilty. The only reason you gave was he does not support your views and you don't believe he is working hard enough. Just because you say so doesn't make it true. In order to remove Mayor Wood for the reasons you stated, you must prove them. You did not. You have not provided one shred of evidence to support your accusations. Therefore, since you did not prove Mayor Wood was derelict in his duties to Oceanside, you must reverse your decision and removing him from his position on Saturday. While this law cannot be found in the U.S. Constitution, Bill of Rights, nor any other founding documents, although arguably one could use the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment. This was an acceptable unwritten law from English common law. However, in 1894, the U.S. Supreme Court put innocent until proven guilty in writing. First time it was used. Although it mostly refers to criminal law, it has been used successfully numerous times in other cases, especially political cases such as we have here. Too many for me to cite. You did not see the forest because of the trees. Why? Because I believe you were too busy brooding over Councilmember Kern's loss for mayor and wanted revenge. In my opinion, what you did was nothing less than a kangaroo court in which you were the accuser, the prosecutor, the judge, the jury, and the executioner, all without any proof whatsoever. It looks like another step to dictatorship to me. Until next time, I thank you. Carry on.
Jimmy Knott wishes to speak as well.
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. When I ran for city council, I asked for all the candidates to take a public civility pledge, but none of them took it. I am asking you today to take and have a resolution to adopt this and to take and post this in this room. And I shall just go over it very simply, especially item number 5. And item number 5 will take and I think resolve a lot of issues that we're taking and encountering here, especially when we don't take time to discuss and listen to each other. 1, thou shalt not rudely interrupt a colleague mid-sentence, nor speak over a colleague while he is speaking. 2, thou shalt not assume that shrillness of tone is a substitute for substantive dialogue. 3, thou shalt treat the members of the public with the same courtesy as you would if they were members of your body, and perhaps more importantly, require that they treat you and your colleagues the same way. 4, thou shalt not resort to zingers designed solely to embarrass your target. 5, thou shalt, where possible, explore areas of common ground where legitimate disagreements exist, and in an effort to move forward on matters of public importance. 6, thou shalt not legitimate critique of policy and practice to become a personal attack aimed at the person who devised the policy or implements the practice. 7, thou shalt always recognize that your colleagues were also elected just as you were and will deserve the same level of respect for having run and won.
8, thou shalt not ridicule or belittle a colleague or a member of the public simply because he, she disagrees with you on an issue. 9, thou shalt not pretend something is more important than it really is, simply to score points with the audience. 10, thou shalt always remember that it's okay to agree to disagree, and that reasonable people can indeed disagree reasonably. I think if we took this as a code of civility, as other cities have throughout this nation, we could take and restore a set of decorum principles in this body. And if we took and studied the items and acted accordingly, let's say having workshops and discuss the matter, I think that we could take and move ahead very easily. Thank you.
No more members of the public wish to speak right now.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, could we move on to 24, please?
Yes. Item number 24 is consideration of a general plan amendment and zone amendment and notice of availability for a local coastal program amendment to revise municipal code chapter 14C and portions of the city zoning ordinance pertinent to density ranges and residential building height and parking standards, and establishing the amended text as part of the implementing document of the local coastal program. This item is continued from January 2nd, 2013.
Thank you, sir. As the mayor, I open this public hearing. Request disclosures from council members, constituents, or contacts or correspondence, please. Jack?
I have had contact with staff as well as some of the committee, and I think that's it.
Certainly, staff, public, interested organizations.
Staff, certainly. Committee commission that was reviewing these issues, the BIA, and phone calls and emails. Thank you.
Community, also just before this hearing, I was contacted by the representative of the BIA.
Yeah, we've been discussing this for a couple of years, so there's probably somebody I have not talked to. I mean, the idea that BIA, advocates for affordable housing, public, staff, so it's been bandied about for quite a while now, so hopefully this is the conclusion.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, presentation or presents of correspondence or petitions?
None.
Thank you very much. And with that, Russ, good evening, sir. Thank you very much for being here.
Mayor Wood, members of the City Council, good evening. Russ Cunningham, Senior Planner. Staff has assembled the necessary text amendments to the general plan, the inclusionary housing ordinance, and the zoning ordinance to implement council direction provided at its September 26th public workshop, during which the council considered ways to incent affordable housing in conjunction with residential projects exceeding the city's base density allowances. The program we've assembled would provide housing developers with additional options for meeting inclusionary housing standards, as well as zoning incentives to encourage the actual provision of affordable housing in conjunction with market rate development, rather than the payment of an in lieu fee, which has been the default choice of the development community for more than 20 years now. Under the proposed program, the in lieu fee would remain an option with a second tier fee applied to units achieved above base density. The second tier in lieu fee would make the developer's contribution to affordable housing more commensurate with the financing gap that is typically associated with affordable housing. That is the inevitable disparity between what it costs to build and manage an affordable unit and the revenue this unit will generate at an affordable sales price or rental rate. The program has a fair number of moving parts. There's some complexity to it, but rather than getting into all of the details, we'll instead focus on an example that's meant to illustrate how the program would apply to the type of infill housing projects that will likely comprise much of the city's housing growth into the future. While there is probably something in these recommendations for everyone to disagree with, they do reflect staff's best effort at a synthesis of what we heard over, as Mr. Kern indicated, nearly a 2-year period from affordable housing advocates, the building industry, community stakeholders, and decision makers like yourself. The proposal, as I said, involves additional options for meeting inclusionary housing standards, including the purchase, rehabilitation, and reservation of existing market rate housing units as income-restricted units. And secondly, the donation of land of sufficient size and under appropriate zoning to accommodate the requisite number of reserved units. With these options, the city would maintain sole discretion to accept or not accept the conversion of market rate units to income-restricted units or the donation of land. The second tier in lieu fee that I mentioned would be established at $12,250 per unit achieved above the base density, with the standard in lieu fee remaining in place for units achieved under the base density. And when an inclusionary housing option other than the in lieu fee is chosen, one of the 5 other options that exist, the 10% affordability requirement, which is now the percentage required under Article 14C, that would apply only to the units achieved under the base density allowance, with no affordability requirement applied to the units above, again, in the cases where one of the options other than the in lieu fee is chosen. The program involves modification of general plan criteria for exceeding base density. Currently, the criteria for exceeding base density require that such projects be quote-unquote superior to projects conforming to the base density allowance. Superior in terms of architecture, landscape, on-site amenities, and infrastructure. These criteria also require that such projects conform to more restrictive parameters than projects that do not exceed base density. Larger lots, greater setbacks, smaller footprints, more parking. At the same time, dwelling units in projects exceeding base density are expected to be larger, to have more floor area than units in projects that conform to base density. So taken together, these expectations make it very difficult, if not impossible, for developers to incorporate affordable units into projects exceeding base density. So to address this problem, the proposed changes to the criteria for exceeding base density would establish that such projects must be of high quality, but not necessarily superior to projects that conform to base density. And I'm happy to discuss these changes further should you be interested. I want to point out that waiver of the CUP requirement, as indicated here, and that would be a waiver that would apply only to those projects that choose an option other than the in lieu fee, would not mean the waiver of the discretionary review process. Residential projects involving more than a single unit would continue to be subject to discretionary review and all of the components of that process: public notification, a public hearing, CEQA review, and the right of stakeholders to appeal those discretionary decisions to this body. As we've talked about before, the program involves concessions to zoning standards when options, again, other than the in lieu fee are chosen. Those include additional building height up to 8 feet and 1 additional story, and reduced parking that would be consistent with a parking study that the City of San Diego conducted and adopted fairly recently, an empirical study of affordable housing parking demand, as well as exceptions that now already exist under our 1986 zoning ordinance that's applicable in the coastal zone. And then finally, to ensure that the standards are applied in a reasonable manner in the coastal zone, staff found it necessary to modify the density ranges for R3 zoning district, which is a coastal zoning district, and to create a density range for the RT zoning district. These changes do not in any way increase what is already the maximum allowable density within those zoning districts. So as I said, an example probably illustrates this best. We'll take the example of a 19-unit project involving for sale condominiums on a 20,000 square foot infill lot under R3 zoning. Under the base density, this project under that zoning and density allowance would achieve 13 units with an additional 6 units above the base. In this case, the developer chooses to reserve units through one of those 5 options other than the in lieu fee. And that means that the units on which the 10% reservation requirement is calculated is those achieved under base density, those 13. So 13 units times 10% is 1.3 units. That's rounded down to 1 unit under this program. This project would be eligible for the zoning concessions I mentioned because this project would choose one of those options for reserving units other than the in lieu fee, and no conditional use permit would be required of this project. Now, a project, the same project involving 19 units with 6 above base that chooses to pay fees rather than exercise one of those options would pay the standard in lieu fee for the units under the base, and there's that amount, and then would pay that second tier in lieu fee for the units achieved above base density, and there's that amount, with a total in lieu fee represented there. And this project would not be eligible for the zoning concessions, and a conditional use permit would be required for this project. Should I move through that rather quickly? I'm happy to talk about it further as you desire. This program went before the Planning Commission in December, and at that time, the Planning Commission made the following recommendations, some of which can be addressed this evening and others of which would require some more work on our part, and we'd have to get back to you. One of those recommendations is that we create density ranges for commercial zones that now allow mixed use. And then secondly, add to that list of commercial zones that allow mixed use the CL, CSL, and CP zones. And I've provided a handout to you, a hard copy handout, that shows where these 3 zoning designations exist in the city today. The Planning Commission recommends that the program be applied to the downtown district, where it has not previously applied, primarily because within the downtown, formerly the redevelopment district, 20% of our tax increment has been set aside for affordable housing. That's no longer the case. So in light of that, the recommendation to the Planning Commission is that this program be applied to the downtown district. The Planning Commission recommended that the program eliminate the option of reserving units for moderate income households. It hasn't been the city's practice to provide for moderate income households, but there is some language in the current ordinance that speaks to moderate income households, or the provision of units for moderate income households being a means of meeting one's inclusionary requirements, and the suggestion is that that be eliminated and that we focus exclusively on lower income households. And there's the recommendation that the Commission, from the Commission, that the City commission a nexus study to justify the assessment of in lieu fees on market rate rental projects. As you know, following the Palmer versus Los Angeles case 4 or 5 years ago, cities cannot require affordable housing in market rate rental projects, but through a nexus study they can justify the assessment of in lieu fees, and the Planning Commission has recommended that such a study be conducted. And then finally, the suggestion is that the zoning incentives, and only that component of the program, be restricted to transit-oriented areas that would exclude those transit-oriented areas or those portions of our transit corridors that include a state residential district. So they suggest that those zoning districts be excluded when they fall within a transit corridor. And the Commission essentially defined the transit corridor as that quarter-mile radius along those areas served by either high-frequency bus and or light rail, as indicated here. As you're aware, City staff is currently working on an update of the City's housing element as required by state law. Last fall, with your authorization, we submitted an initial draft of that update to California Housing and Community Development, and we are now responding to initial HCD comment that we received in November. HCD has expressed concern about the extent to which our housing sites inventory relies upon commercial sites for future housing capacity, given that the maximum density allowance for residential uses in non-coastal commercial zones is 29 dwelling units per acre, which is 1 dwelling unit below HCD's default density for affordable housing. creating a density range of 29 to 43 dwelling units per acre as recommended by the Planning Commission for our non-coastal commercial zones would be looked upon very favorably by HCD and could ultimately be a key factor in achieving state certification of our housing element. Adding those other 3 zones that I mentioned to those that allow mixed use would also assist us in getting the housing element certified, as it would allow us to add more sites to our housing sites inventory. And I should also mention that eliminating the CUP requirement, as indicated earlier, for certain projects would be very well received by HCD, as the state views the conditional use permit as a very significant regulatory constraint to the provision of affordable housing. Based on the comments that we've received thus far from HCD, it appears that the agency is particularly preoccupied with our current CUP requirements and how these requirements may be discouraging densities above the base. So staff believes that adoption of the program before you tonight will significantly enhance our chances of a timely certification of the housing element. So our recommendation is approval of the program as established in the text amendments before you, and we ask for some direction on those possible future actions that I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. I appreciate that. Zach, please.
Yes, this is a public hearing. We have members of the public who wish to speak. We received inquiries from Mr. Michael McSweeney. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, followed by Christopher Wilson. Other members can speak after them.
Jack, sometimes we really have a hard time hearing you, both of us.
Okay. Sorry about that.
This is the public's opportunity to speak. They don't have to fill out a form. This is... Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Happy New Year. I'm Michael McSweeney, Senior Public Policy Advisor for the Building Industry Association. And as you heard in the staff report, this has been a little over 2 years, so I got hired in the middle of the process. The BIA generally agrees with pretty much everything in this proposal. We've worked with your staff, and unfortunately Kay Parker, rest her soul, isn't here tonight to lend her voice to the process. The only disagreement we have is what was in the staff's report as far as the transit-oriented areas. We feel that this proposal that you've got before you, there's some elements in it that no other city has. Quite frankly, you're being a little bit bold here and pushing the envelope, because in a nutshell, if you tax something or make it harder to do something, you'll get less of it. If you incentivize or make more options available, usually you'll get more of it. And one of the things that was brought forth in our proposal to ask you to look at the inclusionary housing requirements and how we could make that better was to put in incentives so that you could get more of what you need. Because quite frankly, members of my association can help you meet your housing element needs for affordable housing. With that being said, the trouble we have with the map you see up on the screen is if something lies outside of those green lines, then those zoning requirements, which are incentives, would not apply. So if there's something that's 3 blocks out of the green line, maybe a good project, it would be good for the city of Oceanside, number of units would work, everything would work, but then you take away those incentives that might make that project go forward. So that we would respectfully request that you approve the report that's in front of you and not include the requirement to only have those zoning incentives apply to the transit-oriented areas. I'll be available to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Chris Wilson, 770 Harbor Cliff Way. My main concern with this proposal that's before is the adjustment to parking requirements that are in place. I happen to live in a development with inadequate parking. My neighbors, I watch them running up and down the street, over the bridge into the downtown neighborhoods where they have to park their cars because they have more people living in their place than they have spaces for cars to park. I feel that even though we're close to downtown, I mean, it's walking distance. I walked down here today for this meeting, and most of the time when I need to come downtown, I choose to walk rather than drive. But to allow more people to live there than you have in a housing development than you have spaces for cars, even in areas where public transit is easily accessible, is going to create gridlock. And I would invite any of you to take a walk just a couple of blocks north of here through the downtown area and see how tightly packed the cars are on the streets there, especially at night. If you drive through, it's actually dangerous to approach some of those intersections because people are parked so close to the corners trying to squeeze as many cars onto the streets as they can that you can't see around the corners to see if it's safe to cross one street on another street. So I would encourage some rethinking as far as the exemptions from the parking space requirements. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. I too have a concern about the cars and the restrictions there. If you go down Apple Street or Canyon Street, you'll take and see the same type of issue. And almost any complex now that takes and restricts the number of vehicles, you will take and see the streets loaded up. And what happens is children normally try to get out into the cars and stuff like that, and it's really a danger to the public. So you're going to take and have this as a constant problem. The second thing is that you see the corridors up there. If you saw this map about 10 years ago, there would be more green lines on there. Because 10 years ago, the bus lines were quite prevalent in serving our public here in Oceanside. It has been reduced over in the years, in fact 20 years ago, we had about 50 to 70% more bus lines than we do now. What we have now reflects really a decimated bus system. And a lot of our plans are basically based upon some errant data. The rail line, it's not going to change. That's about the only thing you can take and depend upon in there. Mobile home parks, they really need to have some assistance, as a few members on this council have said that we should own our own parks. This is an opportunity to take and set aside funding to help us to take in the low-income areas to take and own our own parks. That we could take and then take and use the money to have it bought, and then we'll be willing to pay that back to you. And then can be used to take and be used for other parks that could be owned by the homeowners. This is an opportunity. Other cities have done this. You can take and check it out. It's very simple to check. And the fourth thing is my park owner had a meeting with me, asked me to meet with him and the park manager, and he asked for me to take and express to you that he has concerns about designation of some of the areas around his park that will be designated to be for low-income housing. He feels that this would take and affect his property values, and he's wondering also about the other areas and what type of housing it would be. So he wanted me to express those concerns. Thank you.
John Seymour from the nonprofit National Community Renaissance. We're here today supporting the proposal. I served on that task force where Kay Parker chaired it. I agree with Mr. McSweeney's statement that market rate housing should not be, tied to a transit-oriented area. Affordable housing should. Market should not. I don't think you should try to constrain your market rate housing in those areas. I also support what the Planning Commission did, is to eliminate the moderate income inclusionary and keep that for the affordable low income. That will get you more credits with HCD. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Bob Neal, 109 Avenida, Las Brisas, and I am a sitting member of your Planning Commission, and I come before you to speak as a single member, not representing the commission. Mr. Cunningham did a fantastic job. I was so enthused about this ordinance because it loosens up a lot of potential for what the building industry can do for our city, as everyone has talked about. I don't remember, at least for me, the restriction on the transit areas. And I think, again, it may have been a miscommunication. There was so much discussion, it was unbelievable. But I believe that we need to open up the city for the opportunities that might be there. Of course, the agricultural area and some of the state areas, that's fine to exclude those. But I think it would be a good idea to open up the entire city to this ordinance because of some opportunities that might come along that would meet some of the affordable housing requirements that we have. So I wanted to come down and tell you that either I missed it, but I do want to compliment Mr. Cunningham and the staff. They did a great job, and this is a very exciting ordinance to have. And by the way, we'll take up parking later on. I'm the chairman of the parking committee. That is a toughie, let me tell you. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak may step forward at this time.
Mr. Clerk, I see no others, so I'll close the public hearing and come back to the council. Thank you very much. Councilmember Kern, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with everything except the last one. You know, the idea that I think this should be a citywide program. The idea that if you're 100 yards outside of the zone, then you're not applied. We have this hodgepodge of different regulations and different rules. I think make it citywide, so when somebody comes forward, they say, this is what applies for everybody. The rest of it I agree with. The Nexus study, I think, should be done at a certain point in time about the rental rates and things like that. But the only thing and I'll move approval that we adopt this, provided that it make it citywide. I don't want it to have separate regulations for separate parts of the city. And before I go on, Russ, George, can you introduce the new face there that used to be Jerry Hittleman sitting there, but now we have a new person?
Councilmember Kern, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is Marisa Lundstedt. She's our new city planner, and it's a pleasure to have her on board.
Thank you. Just so people are looking in the audience, who is this new person there? Because they're so used to seeing Jerry there, so it's nice to have her there. So there's not a lot of discussion. Parking is tough. I'm surprised that Mr. Mike Bullock's not here saying cut more parking. You know, he's the guy that says nobody should have parking because everybody should do mass transit. And then we have people here that actually have to live in those areas that say, wait a second, we need more parking. So I think the idea of having the Planning Commission really study the parking issue is something that is a long-term solution. I think that's a good plan, and Mr. Neal, I commend you on doing that, and good luck, because that's always been a contentious issue, I know, with planning and everybody else about the number of parking spaces per unit. So, and I'm sure this is coming up from Chula Vista, I'm sure there's a question down there too. So with that, I'm looking through this, and other than, we talked about the recommendations, but they aren't written down in here, right? So the idea, you're just asking us to adopt this, and then you're going to have to come back and work on those recommendations, and whatever we say here tonight, kind of I don't know, conference and committee type issues, and what Planning Commission said, what we said, and then synthesize that and come back, or how's that going to work?
Councilmember Kern, of the recommendations that I mentioned, 2 of them could be implemented tonight, could be incorporated into the text amendments tonight with the council's vote, and that would be the elimination of the references to moderate income housing and, as you were discussing, the transit corridor restriction for the zoning concessions.
Okay. Well,
the others would require further work. We would have been inclined to include the recommendations regarding commercial zones and ways to incentivize affordable housing in commercial zones, but that will likely require some level of environmental review, and we wanted to get this material to you as soon as possible.
And I'm, in a way, pretty hesitant to start putting residential into commercial zones. I mean, the idea that, we need commercial activity. I mean, that's, as first is residential. The mixed use, I'm for, but the idea that we can't start pushing residential into commercial zones. I think I don't think anybody in the council would want that. I think we need to preserve all the commercial zones that we possibly can. But the idea of the mixed use zoning, as far as the density bonus, those types of things would be good. And then the transit-oriented development, we can get that off the table.
And I'll just clarify that we are talking about residential in conjunction with mixed use in commercial zones.
Okay, all right. So with that, I'm going to recommend that we adopt general plan amendment, zone amendment, and the local coastal program amendment to modify the inclusionary housing and zoning standards for the project exceed residential-based density, with the understanding, part of my motion is to make it citywide and not to include moderate housing.
I'll second.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Councilmember Sanchez, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our job as council members is basically to do what's best for our city and for our residents, and maintain that high quality of life that our residents really expect from us and require of us. And one of the things that is extremely, extremely important to our residents is the quality of life of their neighborhoods. We have all of our neighborhoods very proud of how they were built, the characteristics, and ensuring that we have livable, walkable communities. Now, I did attend a couple of the meetings that were held. This predates the gentleman who is now the BIA representative. It was really clear what the BIA was pushing at the time, in which basically is a result of what we have here today, and that is that they were pushing for whatever they can do to get rid of fees, to get rid of as many regulations as possible, and to be able to do over-the-counter approvals, limit the input of the public, and have no design criteria. They would like to be able to build whatever they want, not have to pay for any of the impacts to our neighborhoods anywhere in the city. And that is not what our citizens desire, expect, or want. This was and has been under the guise of building affordable housing. I propose to you that this does not do anything to build affordable housing. This still talks about $1 a square foot for in lieu fees. There is no way in heck you can build affordable housing with in lieu fees like that. There's just no way. We had, Mayor, how much was it before per unit?
Oh, I'm not sure exactly.
12,000 per unit? Yeah. So here we're down to, might as well just have 0 fees with $1 a square foot. This does nothing to it, unless you go over base density. The example that was used, the words that were used, infill. How many neighborhoods are we going to hear from when they see these huge projects built right next door that are completely out of character with their neighborhood? Out of character. The tables that are on pages 2 and 3, just probably a very oversimplification of what we're talking about this evening. The bottom line, the first thing in there, in lieu fees. Again, there is no way. We should have come up with a formula that is going to have a nexus, that is actually going to be able to build the affordable housing. We don't. So this $1.31 a square foot might as well just exit out, because it's not going to do anything for us. 10%. Right now, if you want to build rather than do in lieu fees, and I think Marjorie, how many developers have actually built rather than pay in lieu fees? Ms. Pierce, putting on your hat of, the housing director.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Only one developer chose to develop on site.
And that was like what, 12 years, 15 years?
Since 1991, and it was 2 units.
2 units. Thank you very much. So here we're doing 10% of base density. Right now it's 10% period of all units. This is 10% of base density. So if it goes twice, they don't have to do anything with respect to the rest. So bottom line, this acts to actually reduce the affordable units that would be built. Building height maximums. 1 additional story and up to 8 additional feet of building height. How many of our neighborhoods in Jeffries Ranch, in Loma Alta, in our coastal zones, how many people would love to see an 8-foot extension, an additional story built right next to them? Completely out of character. Completely. With their community. Parking reductions. This, again, has no nexus. We're talking about getting rid of doing this along transportation corridors. It only makes sense if it's along transportation corridor. It makes no sense if you do not have public transportation. What this suggests is that people who have less means don't buy cars. They're not going to need to park a car at all. They're going to walk, walk a mile or two to, get to public transportation. I suggest to you that that's not going to happen. What is going to happen is that they're going to park their cars all along the other neighborhoods. And by the way, as I recall, we were talking during these meetings about having more narrow streets, smaller, units. Just packing them in with, smaller streets. Just doesn't make sense. And the kicker of the thing, commercial. Now this is the problem that we have, and we have mostly in our planning department. We have people working for us who have practically zero history, who've actually worked with us and with communities in terms of building their neighborhoods, in terms of what matters to our community and how passionate they are about defending their neighborhoods. Commercial lands especially, to the notion that we would give up the very few commercial lands that we have left in our city. And we have the lowest ratio of jobs to residents. Lowest. And yet here we are talking about, making jobs for Oceanside residents not a priority. It is an insult to our residents that are currently here, to our future residents, to our kids who will never have the possibility of being able to live and work in the same city. So that especially is very discouraging to see that, we've already turned a lot of our commercial land to residential. That was pre-planned. All we really have left is Oceanside Boulevard as a major commercial corridor for jobs. And now we're talking about getting rid of that. That is very, very discouraging. And I think the thing that really, and I think this is something that I talked about last time, complete elimination of conditional use permits for units that exceed, for projects where they exceed the base density. That means that we can't put any conditions on that. You know, we spent so much time and effort in design criteria. We've had community meeting after community meeting after community meeting to talk about how unique our neighborhoods are and what would be appropriate and how critical it is for developers to have, you know, upfront notice about what we would like to see in our neighborhoods. Here, it's a complete waiver. Do whatever they want. This is getting to that notion of over-the-counter approvals. Where's the community? You know, we get to hear about it afterwards. You know, it gets built or it's in the process of building, and that's when we're going to get our citizens to call and complain about what, you know, this project is. Why isn't it, you know, why isn't it consistent with our character and community? I don't see that this is consistent with our local coastal plan. The building heights, extending the building heights, there's no discussion about, or that I can see, about maintaining our public views. The character, I mean, that for me, because maybe it's because we've lived here, you know, since day one. Character in our community is so important. So important. These are livable communities. People so proud of their homes. And yet, this is very discouraging. And, you know, this is under the guise of building affordable housing. It ain't going to get built with this. Really, this is back to the meetings that I attended. It's really all about taking away responsibility, giving it to the city at a time when we can't afford to build another affordable housing project. $1 square foot. $1 square foot. At the very, very least, we should go back to the formula which actually allowed us to build the affordable housing that we were able to build. We have a project in our midst. And we actually have a potential fund to make that happen. And that has to do with the sale of Laguna Vista. But in terms of our, you know, whether or not we can collect any more fees, like the in-lieu fees. In-lieu means you pay to play, right? You pay, instead of, you know, having responsibility for building those affordable units, which is a state law, right? You just go ahead and pay that $1 a square foot. I have no idea how this is going to get done. The only thing I see is wholesale destruction of our community, values, character, and elimination of our potential to ever be able to offer the kinds of jobs that our citizens deserve. I'm not going to be able to support this, especially the notion that this should be citywide. The parking requirements, it just does not make sense. We are going to have parking mess after parking mess and parking complaint after parking complaint. You know what I asked is, of the gentleman from the BIA, I said, you know what, I don't want to build an instant ghetto. I do not want to replicate Crown Heights. Not referring to the residents who live there who pay market rate rent. But I remember when that wasn't there. I attended Oceanside High and went trick-or-treating in that area when there was not that height and that density. It was one of the better neighborhoods. And to see, you know, growing up and seeing, you know, this really, really nice neighborhood, really great folks who cared about their community, and then to see it now with absentee landlords who don't give a darn about what it looks like, and certainly don't give a darn about the kind of crime that is happening there. and see that possibility happen in other neighborhoods, that is a crime. This is density. This is not smart growth. Smart growth means along transportation corridors, exactly what the parking and what Mike Bullock would be talking about here today. Bundling. Ensuring that we have that access to public transportation. This is not in the best interest of our city, of our citizens, of our children, of our future. So I urge my colleagues to vote no. Thank you.
Councilmember Feller, please.
Thank you. I've visited several developments built by affordable builders, and you wouldn't know them from where Chris lives with his folks, Harbor Cliff. You wouldn't know that and any difference that they're outstanding places to be in with 20 grandchildren. I just hope that they can get a start in a place much like those. I had a couple of questions about this thing you handed out, Russ. Pardon me. You have to look up here. Right behind Lighthouse Church, on Mesa and College, there is a CL, and it's. I know that before that church was built, that was to be an Albertsons. Is that a remnant parcel that the church owns there that's still considered commercial, light commercial?
Deputy Mayor Feller, I don't have any specific information on that particular parcel. This exhibit is meant to just show where these particular zoning designations exist throughout the city.
And I think you pretty clearly said that the commercial, the commercial professional, commercial limited, commercial light limited, light limited. Anyway, those are all considered something that we could consider as mixed use, not eliminating the. Is that how you?
At present, Deputy Mayor Feller, those three commercial designations do not allow for mixed-use development.
And you're asking for that to happen?
The Planning Commission made that recommendation. Staff supports that recommendation.
Okay, and it's to move into mixed use. I mean, it's like Mesa and Mission, where that medical center is failing there. That's a perfect example of where you could, combine the uses on that property. So, I really think that this is not a drama issue. If this was this bad, I can't imagine how Kay Parker supported it. So it's easy for me to support this, and I commend you for going forward. And I agree that we should look for every opportunity to have a affordable project outside of even the designated transit corridors.
Councilmember Fulton, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is an excellent opportunity for the city to move forward by supporting these recommendations. Certainly it was all summed up today in an excellent editorial in the Union Tribune. It really comes down to recognizing that we're in a recession, and in the middle of a recession, you're not going to collect the same waterfall of fees that you collected during an economic boom time as it related to housing. And so this ordinance attempts to acknowledge some economic facts, and certainly basic mathematics suggests that lower prices are what create affordable housing. And if you can lower fees and you lower regulations, you lower prices, and that creates affordable housing. I don't know how it gets any more complicated than that. And and here we have an opportunity to move to free market incentives. So I guess there are those at the dais who are skeptical of how a free market works, and the idea that we're going to micromanage every square foot of land in Oceanside doesn't make sense to me. I think Councilman Kern stated it correctly, in that you don't want a good project turned down because it happens to be 100 feet on the wrong side of a line. And so it is important to not create more regulations when you're when you're trying to replace others here. And so I certainly support the adjustments that he recommended. I wanted to clarify something, Russ, that I thought I heard you say, and I want to make sure I heard it correctly. The issue of allowing residential development and land, whether it's mixed or shared, on land that's currently zoned commercial, did I understand correctly that that is coming from the state of California, and that if we did that, our housing plan would be far more likely to be approved by the state?
Councilmember Feline, the draft housing element that we brought before you last year included a housing sites inventory. That inventory is a parcel by parcel listing of properties that we've identified as having the potential to develop if they're vacant, or redevelop if they're underutilized for the purposes of housing. And many of the sites in our inventory are sites within our commercial districts that currently allow mixed use. Most of our commercial districts allow mixed use.
Okay, so how did the issue of the state approving our housing plan come into that?
HCD has expressed concern about the density allowance in our non-coastal commercial districts. Presently, those districts allow a maximum of 29 dwelling units per acre, and the state's default density for affordable housing is 30 dwelling units per acre. So it makes it more challenging for us to make the case that these are sites that could potentially accommodate affordable housing with a density allowance of only 29 dwelling units per acre. So the state would like to see a density range there established of 29 to 43, akin to the densities allowed currently in our high-density residential zones and currently allowed along Coast Highway in the C2 zone.
So the pressure for higher density is coming from the state of California, then, correct? I mean, basically, if we went to higher density, that would make them happy. And so the only reason we're considering it is because the state of California has a gun to our head to approve our housing plan. Is that correct, or am I overstating that?
Councilmember Feline, elevating the density allowance in the commercial zones would make it easier, again, for us to make the argument that sites that we've already identified in our inventory are sites that could, perhaps, accommodate affordable housing in the future, with really the alternative being the rezoning of commercial land to strictly residential, or the rezoning of peripheral areas that might currently have an agricultural designation to residential. That's something that we're very much trying to avoid, a direction we would prefer not to go in.
Okay, well, so it sounds to me that the issue is basically one that, the state controls the cities, and they're forcing this on us, and as a city, we're obligated to abide by the state laws as they're interpreted by the state bureaucrats. And the other point related to this, as I thought I understood, and I want to make sure I'm correct in this, is that the ordinance that Councilman Kern that he made his motion for and that Councilman Feller seconded does not include the issue of commercial property conversion. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that issue is totally irrelevant to the vote we're taking now, correct?
To the motion, yes.
Yes, okay, so about 15 minutes was irrelevant to what we're doing here. Well, I think the issue is that we move forward by voting for this ordinance, that we actually create real affordable housing rather than taxing one segment of the housing market to subsidize another segment of the housing market. It's a way to structure it so we allow the free market to work to provide affordable housing where it makes sense, and I certainly plan to vote yes. Thank you.
Councilmember Sanchez, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that our housing director, Marjorie Pierce, would have given a much better presentation here about how to achieve our affordable housing goals. They are goals. I just want to, and I won't do that. I won't have her come up and do that. I will, however, refer to our other cities, coastal cities like Solana Beach, Encinitas, Del Mar, who don't do anything like this and continue to get funding from our regional funding as well as state funding and federal funding for their projects. Carlsbad, can you ever imagine Carlsbad doing this? So yes, I think 15 minutes was critical for people to understand that what is before us is not required by the state. It is not going to build the affordable housing. We have a project that we can just say, let's do this, we've got the money, let's, at the next council meeting, staff, bring that money forward and let's go ahead and designate that money from the sale of Laguna Vista and get that project going. That's our affordable housing project. And what are we doing? We're sitting on our hands. This is an exercise in screwing with our residents and our neighborhoods. That's what this is here. It is not about building affordable housing. So I think that when people buy into their homes, invest these very, very valuable put a lot of time and effort into building a home where they can raise their family. Why don't our residents, the interests of our current residents, matter at all to this council? You know, we're talking about people who are not even here. We're not here saying, please build this. Not one. We need to care about our current residents and not our biggest donors. Thank you.
Hey, Larry, hold it down, please. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Complicated issue at best. I'll wind this down, but I have to have our city attorney title these two ordinances before we vote on it. For me, I'm a little bit challenged on this one. I recently met with most of the staff and the BIA to talk about this. They came into my office, and I appreciate that. I certainly remember Kay Parker talking to me about this before she passed away. There wasn't a bigger advocate for affordable housing in some form or fashion in the city. She was leery of the final results, but she said it was a compromise. Gee, that's unusual, a compromise. We do that everywhere we go. Sandag, you name it, we compromise. So she was kind of supportive. There's no doubt in my mind she had some issues, but I don't want to go over them again because Esther and other people brought them up, parking and a few other things that concern us. I do understand that. The commercial zone was another hot topic in here because nobody wants to give up commercial to residential. Doesn't make us money and doesn't make jobs. We understand that too, and we're concerned. The state would love to have us take commercial and make it residential for affordable or any of the things, but those don't pay for themselves in a city for all the services they get. Residential really doesn't help cities. It's commercial we want. But we also have compassion, and we want everybody out there to try to have affordable housing. The sad part of it is it's like a drop in the bucket. for affordable housing. You know, you have that many homeless people or people really cut out because of all the foreclosures. You might be able to help a couple of people when there's thousands out there. So I understand that too. Have to have compassion. My issue on this particular one, where I say I have a mixed feeling because of Kay Parker giving me a lot of input. Marjorie, I see when you have the Housing Commission chair here. Hi, Bob. I know there's a lot of people like to have input on it and they want to have input. I also think in the back of my mind, I think you see a lot of people in the building industry. There's nobody probably more supportive of these employees than I am for their jobs. So it is a conflict. What's best for everybody? On this particular one where I really have to draw the line, and this is a new one. You need to know that. People came and talked to us on both sides, but this last part of it was these pictures you have on the board up here. The Planning Commission, which is picked by the entire council over the years, not just me, but the entire council, came back with a solution that they wanted these things you brought up at the end of your presentation, Russ, including these highlighted transportation corridors. Sandag, as Mr. Feller will soon find out, they like transportation corridors, just like you see here on the board. The motion is not for that, so I have concerns, and I'll have to address that when I make my vote. I think I support a lot of this, but I certainly like this transportation corridors because that's where the money is for us on transportation corridors from Sandag and other issues. I'm not going to bore you to death. I also realize the public, not me, the public voted in the majority on this council. You get what you vote for. If you're not happy, whatever it might be, that's your call out there in the audience at home too. So we'll see where it goes from there. But like I said, I want to explain my concerns for both sides. I think it's important here in Oceanside, and I thank the staff for coming to talk to me, along with the BIA, et cetera. This last phase of it really makes my issue. So if I could have the city attorney read the titles before we vote.
Right, you have two resolutions, one for the local coastal program amendment and one for the general plan amendment. I need to title the two ordinances. The first is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oceanside amending zoning regulations for projects exceeding the city's base density allowances and reserving units for low and moderate income households in accordance with the city's inclusionary housing standards, regulatory concessions for projects exceeding base density allowances and meeting specified inclusionary housing standards. Second ordinance is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oceanside amending Chapter 14C of the Oceanside City Code modifying the city's inclusionary housing regulations.
Thank you, sir. With that, please vote.
Motion approved, 3-2. Wood and Sanchez, no.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that. I do appreciate it. Number one, if I may for a moment, I'd like to see the Boy Scouts stand up here, these two young lads and some back here. They're here for their civic aspect patches. Could I have all those Boy Scouts stand up so we can get you on television? Both of you guys stand up too. And over here, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear civic duty or getting their patches for, sorry to pick this night for these issues that are long and complicated, but thank you for, let's hear it for them. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. With that, I'm going to jump ahead to item 26, please, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 26 is adoption of an ordinance of the City of Oceanside amending Chapter 2, Section 2.164 of the Oceanside City Code, modifying the appointment process for regional boards and commissions. This is introduced.
Thank you. I'll have the city attorney explain this one because it came back again.
Thank you. I've prepared a staff report that's in your packet. I'll go ahead and title the ordinances. But as noted in your staff report, this action is effectively the readoption of the ordinance that previously took place on December 12th in response to two Brown Act letters that were delivered by legal counsel identified in my staff report. So I'll go ahead and title it and now answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
This is an ordinance of the City of Oceanside amending Chapter 2, Section 2.1.64G of the Oceanside City Code, modifying the appointment process for regional boards and commissions.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. There might be public on it. I want to say, at the time I said I thought it was an illegal meeting because of the circumstances. I'm not going to get into that boring story tonight, but we had to redo it again tonight because whatever reasons. And we're doing it here, so there'll be a vote on that. I'm sure it'll go in a particular direction, but are there public on this one?
Yes.
Let's have them first.
You will have 3 minutes to speak. First speaker will be Jimmy Knott, second will be Christopher Wilson, and third will be Polly Fukuhara.
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. The question I have of this council is very simple. Will you take and set this aside and put it to a vote of the people to make this a charter amendment? This is what is deemed necessary under the state constitution. This is also deemed necessary underneath our charter. I am asking you, will you set this aside and let the people vote? Very simple. Yes or no?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I was listening as we opened the meeting this evening to the invocation which was offered by the cantor, and he made extensive references to the opportunity to reconsider decisions. This is a rare opportunity that you have in that this issue has come back before you for readoption. I'd like to offer an alternative to what's been proposed here. That being, take the politics out of it. And the easy way to do that is let the people decide. Make appointments to regional boards and commissions automatic based on vote counts, vote percentages. Let the person who gets the highest percentage of the vote of the people represent the city on those regional boards and commissions, because by sort of definition, they represent the most people in the city. That would also eliminate a lot of the sort of bickering back and forth that seems to go on here with regards to disagreements over appointments and policies that should be pursued. And again, as I would also just like to note that I agree with Jimmy that I really think that this should be a charter amendment. To do it as an ordinance opens up the city to being a test case legally, which is always expensive. We heard recently that we're in the black. Good Lord, let's not squander it. Let's, especially on something as meaningless as fighting over who gets to sit on our regional boards. And there's lots of them. I mean, there's not just Sandag, there's the Water Authority, we have North County Transit District. All of these things have impacts on the lives of citizens. And so I really would just urge you to take the opportunity, the rare opportunity that we have here to reconsider the decision that was made on the 12th. And hopefully you will make the right decision. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Polly Fukuhara. I live at 520 South Ditmore Street in Oceanside, and I'm here tonight to talk about the power grab by Mr. Kern and Feline and Feller that they are proceeding on tonight. We're not the only people who are outraged by this. People looking at the city from outside are also amazed at what's going on here. And I'm reading part of a letter by Thomas K. Arnold, who is a city planning commissioner for the city of Carlsbad. He had a composition that was published by the UT San Diego on January 13th, and some of it was kind of about the county in general, but the part pertaining to Oceanside goes like this. The shady goings-ons in Oceanside have hit a new low. Like him or not, Mayor Jim Wood handily won re-election, and booting him off Sandag board is a slap in the face, not just to the mayor, but also to the voters of Oceanside who elected him to a third term. The way the council went about this disgrace is also shameless. The first step came last month when they passed an ordinance giving the council the power to remove city representatives to regional boards and agencies who were appointed by the mayor. The ordinance, which all three conservative council members supported, also gives the council the power to veto appointments the mayor makes and appoint someone else. The conservative troika insists they were acting in the best interest of Oceanside and that Wood had to go because he simply wasn't effective. And everything I hear from sources close to Sandag say that this is simply not true. Wood got high marks for working and playing well with others. Heck, he even carpooled to Sandag meetings with Carlsbad Mayor Matt Hall, a conservative and a good friend of Jerry Kern. No, there's really no explanation for what Misters Feline, Feller, and Kern have done other than spite, malice, and dirty politics. I've always admired those three men and supported their political platforms. They're consistently doing what's best for Oceanside, even if it's unpopular. But by dumping Wood, however, they've taken one giant misstep, and my hunch is that down the road in the next election, it is going to come back to haunt them. I think you guys are being very heavy-handed and highfalutin about what you think you're doing, and I don't think that it's going to serve anyone well, but I really think it's not going to serve you, Mr. Kern, you, Mr. Feline, 2 years from here, because that outrage that people feel is going to come back, and it's going to get you unelected.
We have 4 more members of the public wishing to speak. You may come to the podium in this order. First, we have Susie Schroeder. Second, we have Robert Markley. Third, we have Linda Walshaw. And third, we have Stephanie Reimer.
Susie Schreier. I live at 276 North El Camino Real. And my comments are directed to Mr. Feller, Feline, and Kern, and to the viewing public. There simply is no justification for what you three, who call yourselves the majority, are proposing to do here tonight, other than spite, malice, and dirty politics. To itemize the many ways would take longer than 2 minutes I'm given here tonight. This is no longer just the mayor's fight. It is time for the citizens of Oceanside and voters to take the lead in condemning these acts of aggression against the mayor, against Oceanside residents, and in the best interest of our city. Thank you.
Robert Markley, 200 North El Camino Real. I ask those in attendance tonight and those on watching on television, is the following a comedy or a tragedy? Act 1. A secret band of out-of-town special interest representatives conspires with the city council majority to draft a city charter. Then the city council majority jams it onto the ballot without any citizen input or even input from the city attorney. Act 2. The out-of-town special interests pay for a campaign to get the city charter they concocted passed, claiming it will give voters more home rule. Act 3. After the charter is passed, the city council majority hides behind the city charter to grab more power for themselves, not the citizens. They use this power to strip the most popular mayor in recent history of much of his mayoral power to benefit their own out-of-town special interest handlers. I ask, again, is this comedy or a tragedy? It depends on where you live. If you live outside Oceanside and are watching what is happening, it's a comedy, or maybe a three-ring circus. If you live inside Oceanside, it's a tragedy. All these shenanigans are occurring because we have a severely flawed city charter. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me? Linda Walshaw, 151 Robbie Lane, Oceanside. I would like to speak to the voters of Oceanside, whether they're here or listening at home. I would like to ask, do you still believe in democratic process? Do you think that your vote still counts for something? If so, then you better pay attention, because this city council majority, and Messrs. Kern, Feller, and Feline, think you're wrong. They believe their three voices are the only ones that matter. Over 54% of the vote in November's election re-elected Mayor Wood to his third term of office. Yet the very day he was sworn in for his third term, this council majority passed this ordinance stripping the mayor of powers of office and transferring those powers to themselves. Tonight they are voting to do so again. If voters had wanted Mr. Kern to have mayoral powers, they would have voted for him. They did not. This city council would be a big joke to the general public if it were not for the issues at stake that will affect their very lives and families. Do you want your home taken by eminent domain? Do you want your paramedics replaced with emergency techs who can't perform life-saving procedures? Do you want higher ambulance bills and longer response times when services are privatized to out-of-town companies? Do you want a toxic waste dump built on the San Luis Rey River? Do you want high-rise hotels blocking ocean views and beaches? Do you want to go through another fight to save Oceanside's mobile home parks, our largest source of affordable housing? Do you want upscale retail shops coming in to crowding out the local mom and pop businesses who are already struggling to stay afloat in this economy? Thousands of voters have already told this council majority they do not want these things, yet these three councilmen continue to push these agendas. Why? Because their financial support comes from out-of-town builders and developers, and because Oceanside City Charter was written not with public input or by our city attorney, but by a lobbyist for the Building Industry Association. The Building Industry Association might as well be sitting on this dais. At least that would be more honest. What can you do? Tell this council majority that your voice will not be silenced. Your vote still counts. Tell them you will not sit idly by while your vote is ignored. Stay informed, get involved, join your local community organizations, and take back Oceanside by voting out Mr. Kern and Mr. Feline in 2014.
Ms. Stephanie Reimer is allowed to speak at this time. I believe she has left for the evening.
I don't see her now. Is that it?
That is all the public requests.
Thank you very much. Back to the council. Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a contest. It was on November 6th. And we did have a very clear message from two candidates vying for the same office. Mayor Jim Wood running for re-election and Councilmember Jerome Kern, who challenged him for well over a year. And each time he challenged his leadership, not only on Sandag, but here on the council dais. The public, the community, Oceanside residents had a wonderful opportunity, and they took it. 76% of our registered voters voted, and they decided by a supermajority that they want Mayor Jim Wood to be our city's leader. We celebrate 125 years this year for the city of Oceanside. For 123 of those years, we've done things a certain way. We have had a mayor who has exercised his appointing authority, who continued to be the leader. During that time, there were no problems. There were no issues having to do with, more conservative than not. There were a couple of things situations that were brought out by members on this dais about Mayor Lyon and Terry Johnson and former Mayor Lyon and former council member Terry Johnson. At the time, he was a council member, who then ran for mayor and settled it at that point. Also, there was a reference to former councilwoman Melba Bishop. It's almost as if saying, okay, it's been done a couple of times, so two wrongs make a right. Two wrongs never make a right. It was not right for those actions to happen. It is not right for this action to have happened. On December 2nd, the ink wasn't even dry. They were still counting the votes, if you recall. It was actually a week before that Councilmember Feline brought forward under his council item, his request that this council majority strip the mayor of his mayoral powers of appointment. And shortly after that he be removed from Sandag. Now, They said it was because Jim had not worked hard enough. You know, I don't know how they can say that. Jim has worked so hard. He has been the reason that we have satisfaction by our residents, knowing that we've had to cut and cut and cut, just like every other city. There was this statement that they made, well, we're going to get these juicy appointments on these committees of Sandag, and we're going to get more money. Well, as I understand it, that meeting happened this morning for the appointments, and they didn't get anything. Squat. Okay? Now, in order to be able to do that, you need to work with the other regional leaders. And I guess they're not able to do that. Guess who was and has been able to do that? Mayor Jim Wood. We have a different Sandag makeup. More balanced in terms of party affiliations, more balanced in terms of vision for San Diego County. And the person who can bring our city of Oceanside to the future is Mayor Jim Wood. Now, I've heard some very uncomplimentary names referring to Councilmember Feller, you know, and Councilmember Kern and Councilmember Feline by these regional leaders. And, you know, I'm sorry to say that I guess it's a joke. Our city is not a joke. We care a lot about our city. I'm sure these three council members do too in their own way. But to be ethical and do the right thing would mean to place Jim Wood back as our Sandag representative. He is the only one that has the ability to make friends and get things for our city. Now, the other thing that they said was, you know, oh, geez, you know, we don't agree on the Melrose extension, and we don't agree on the RDO interchange. These are non-regional projects. Non-regional. That means Sandag's not going to give us the money. These are very, very low priority projects. And Melrose extension requires condemning 14 properties, private properties, as well as county park. And there are not the 4 votes here on the council dais to do that. We know that. We're spending over $1 million on engineering studies that are going to go nowhere fast. They're going to sit on some shelf. That is not going to happen in our lifetime. Neither is the RDO interchange. All this is, honestly, really, putting aside all the rhetoric here, these are just wedge issues, wedge politics. We have the great opportunity of going forward on projects that we do have consensus on, that we do agree on. Coast Highway, bringing businesses to the city of Oceanside, making Oceanside, without having to deal with these 2 projects, we've got a lot more that we can do and say to make our city greater. And yet we focus on these negatives. And I guess it's just to constantly create this bad image of Oceanside. We've got to stop that. We have to stop that. And this is the opportunity for you all, you 3. You didn't get what you wanted. You know, you got shut out completely from transportation, right? Right? So, no transportation. I understand Feline got, you know, alternate, but Lisa Hebner, councilwoman from the city of Solana Beach, is the voting member. So, I believe Councilmember Feller retained his seat on public safety. So, I think you had that last year. So nothing happened that you hoped to happen. You know, I guess hope springs eternal. But it was a useless cause. Let's get back to the business of having our mayor be our city leader, who has a good relationship with all of these. I have a great relationship with our new mayor for City of San Diego. I've known Mayor Bob Filner since he was a city council member for District 8. And he is ready to change Sandag. I want us, our voices to be heard. I want our vision to be recognized. It is not going to happen with 3 council members who basically have shown our regional leaders, regional cities, that they don't want to play nice. If this is what they do to their own board, what will they do to Sandag? Our citizens deserve better. And what I'm seeing, I agree with the members of the public when they talk about this flawed charter. This would never have happened but for. And on top of that, my understanding is that our charter is extremely flawed, that starting January 2015, we will not be able to get any state funding or assistance for projects because of our charter. So this charter that was supposedly going to save us money is actually going to cost us money, is actually turning our Constitution upside down. What Constitution? A 3-page charter that doesn't talk about what the role is of the mayor and what the role is of the council members? You know, that basically says you can do anything by ordinance, anything by ordinance. That is not a rule of the people of the citizens of Oceanside. That is the rule of 3 people. 3 people, a dictatorship, basically. At the very least, what we had as a result of November's election is a sense that, you know what, we need to have more balanced policy. And I think we had an issue about how we should work better together. I think giving back our mayor, Jim Wood, his Sandag position would go a long way, and then just moving forward from there would go a long way to keeping this contract with our residents that we will do the best job possible sitting here as representatives. Thank you.
Councilmember Feline.
Wow. Well, Jimmy, it looks like your 10 commandments of public civility went down the toilet at the first time the ship hit the reef here. And, you know, we talk about working together, but how do you work together when we have these just kind of gutter speeches where anyone who disagrees with someone's accused of being unethical, you're accused of being a criminal. There can't be any possible motive other than being on the take or being corrupt for holding a position that's different than Councilwoman Sanchez's. And of course, I always love the imaginary conversations with supposedly imaginary people. I can certainly reveal some of the conversations I've had about other members here too. And it's interesting that a majority, you know, how is a majority of the vote a dictatorship? I guess that's probably the most bizarre interpretation of elections that I've ever heard in my life. 3 votes is called a majority. And there wasn't one election, there was 2 elections. An election in 2010 and an election in 2012. The result of both those elections resulted in the majority that's on the council now. And you know, in a council of 5, 3 people are called the majority. 2 people are called the minority. And maybe you're the minority because of basically the contemptuous speeches we hear like we just heard now. Gosh, I mean, I hate to repeat the speech that Mr. Knott gave and all the 10 commandments of public civility, but I think all 10 were broken. Now, my ordinance basically puts into place the same process that's in the city of San Marcos, where basically when it comes to regional boards and commissions where council members sit on them, that basically the entire council should have a say in how those appointments are made. That keeps totally in place the process where for third parties being appointed to city commissions and boards that the mayor nominates and the council approves, which is the process we have now. Of course, even since we haven't had a vote yet, my ordinance isn't even in place yet. And yet we've had 4 meetings, and yet we've not seen the mayor's list of suggested appointments based on the process that's still in place. Now, the reason we're here tonight, of course, is because of a minor staff error on noticing a meeting that had nothing to do with the Brown Act or criminal meetings or illegal meetings or any of the other silly accusations that have been made about the prior meetings, but to remove any risk whatsoever from going to a 99% certainty of winning to making sure we have a 100% certainty of winning. The majority of this council took the responsible position to basically hold a second hearing, and of course Mayor Wood's removal from Sandag, which took place on the 2nd of January, was based on the ordinances that were in place then, which had nothing to do with the city charter. It had to do with the powers that existed, whether we had a city charter or whether we were a general law city. So the two are totally independent of each other, and we've certainly hashed through all this long enough, and I urge a yes vote. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance to modify the appointment process for regional boards and commissions.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Kern, please.
You know, I haven't commented on this, and this is the 4th time we talked about it. The only thing I'm going to ask for is I'm going to call for the question.
Well, everybody hasn't spoken, and that's required for a call for a question.
Everybody's spoken before. I'm just going to ask for a call for the question. I don't think there's anything more else to talk about. If I don't get a second, fine, we'll let people talk.
I just, from historical perspective, typically we call the question once every member's spoken once. So
that's not quite true. There's been calls before. I know when Councilmember Feller was here by himself, they cut him off before he had a chance to speak.
I believe that, in my opinion as the board chair, is that you can call for the question once everybody spoke.
That's typically how it's applied, and then if people keep hitting their light, then that's typically where I've seen the call for the question been made.
I would agree to it if we're only each going to speak once. I mean, that's...
Okay, as long as that's it, because, you know, like, this is the 4th time around. I mean, so, and, you know, what Councilmember Sanchez has said and what Councilmember Felina said, we've all heard before. So the idea that, let's just move on.
Mr. Kern, for your sake, I'm going to let everybody at least speak once. Mr. Feller, you're up on the light.
I just... judges must just run screaming from the chambers when they hear attorneys go on like this. I'm so disappointed with all the hype and this really isn't the end of the world. These appointment processes, sure, we would like to have done that, but every city that voted against us taking those positions does the same thing that we are trying to do here. The majority rules that council. The guy from Delmar was threatened that he would be removed from Sandag if he voted with Councilmember Hall and I. So, or Mayor Hall and I. So, you know, that is what it is. It's still a replacement of Mayor Wood at Sandag. I feel, you know, I don't have those same warm feelings I heard from Councilmember Sanchez about the job that was done down there when in 7 years the best we got was a Borders Committee or a Public Safety Committee, the best we got, and he was in the driver's seat. So obviously he didn't want to do the work and he didn't want us to do the work. So it's, I just feel that the cities with 180,000 people or 175,000 people, outnumbering Del Mar, who has 4,400, Solana Beach, who has 15,000, and Encinitas, who has 70,000. I mean, it's the tail wagging the dog as far as that group of citizens. So I didn't speak in your comment, so please.
Mr. Feller's telling me to be quiet, so please do so.
So in this situation, we don't have a vote at in the regional side. We will certainly have a vote at the table at the Sandag board, and the Sandag board will be able to respectfully disagree with the opinions of the three of the smaller cities in the county. So, with that, I think we need to go forward with this, and soon.
Thank you. For everybody's sake, I'll be the last speaker, and we'll go to the vote. Thank you. I had a couple of things to say, and I want to clarify this. We have gone over this before. It is boring. It's long. I'm going to say right up front, I said it before, this is not about me. If I'm not on Sandag, that's not the worst thing in the world. However, I was the senior mayor in the North County, and that does have pull in San Diego. I can tell you that the rest of the mayors down there don't like to see councils remove mayors. So that's another issue that'll have to come up down there. But the other thing is, when they brought this up, they kind of opened Pandora's box. By that, I mean, all of a sudden the same thing happened at San Diego. Battle with the mayor and the council on who's going to appoint to Sandag. Gee, there's another bombshell. That was just kind of a sidelight for what we started here in the North County. The other one is that the vote that just took place this morning for committees. I'm no longer on Sandag. They removed me. So they planned on taking over all the subcommittees of, quote, power, which is going to be transportation and planning. There's 5 subcommittees for the 5 coastal cities. Mr. Feller retained his vote and his spot on public safety. Mr. Feline got alternative for planning. That's it. Matter of fact, they even removed Mayor Hall from transportation over to executive. What I'm saying is, when you tease and make comments like Mr. Feller just said about small cities, this is their reaction. They have 3 votes, no matter how small they are, in a group of 5. They outvoted us and Carlsbad because they didn't like what happened to me, number one. Politically, they didn't like it. And the other thing you could imagine on it is, if this is the way they treat the mayor, why would they want to work with them? That's a problem I had in the past explaining it to them. So what we have now, and maybe in the future, is those 3 votes will rule all the subcommittees in the future. We'll see how that goes. And as for the gentleman who voted, and he said he was going to be removed, their council had a meeting and told them how to vote. The whole council, how things should go. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what took place. And when he tried to change it, they said they were removing him. Sound familiar? Anyhow, what I'm saying is politics come into play, and I understand it. I'm not going to necessarily cry the blues about this. What I've told you before, and I'll tell you again, it's frustrating to win by a large margin, this and all the other times, and find out it really doesn't count for you, the public. You knew what I stood on, what I was going for, whatever, I win. And their way to do it is, you can't beat me at the poll, let's do it back door through the charter city. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit. Charter city is very flawed. It came up as a tool to circumvent the voters and what you do. It was said that you save money in the PLA for unions. That's an issue that's been addressed by the California Supreme Court. So we have a charter that's a little bit flawed. It was very, very short in pages. There's a reason. Mr. Feller said he wrote it, and later on we found out the ABC/BIA wrote it. They cut and pasted it. So it's outside influence on the project and how the city is run as a government. We were 125 years as a non-charter city. We were a general law city, and it covered all the yeses and do's and don'ts. They brought that forward without any input from our mayor, our city attorney, our city manager, put it on the ballot, pushed it forward to save money, and you voted for it, understanding you didn't have a lot of input. So what they've done with it is decided to change the entire outlook of the city and how it's run by ordinance, not by a vote of the citizens. So I would say my request to you in the audience and at home, I hope that you'll think about a couple of things. The 2014 election and who do you want to run you and be your representatives? Certainly, do you continue to want to have a charter city, and maybe that should be changed back to a general law city? That's not up to me, that's you, the public. I'd like to see something go in that direction for changing this back to a general law city. And that's something you'll have to work on and do. And I think it's doable. And you'll see that probably be the best interests of the city and the future. But you're tired from running Proposition E and F for vacancy control and how we vote for people. Remember, the motion was to change how we voted. No one should be on the council without 50% or more to represent you. I'm the only person that's got 50% or more. So here we are. A couple of things also I noticed recently on this is that Councilman Sanchez did an excellent job explaining it. There's so many things out there that we'd like to address for you, the citizens of Oceanside, that I think are far more important than two issues, Melrose Drive Extension and RDO at 78, which I've said for years isn't going to happen. So why are we arguing over these two important issues that nobody cares about in a sense? Sandag certainly doesn't. It's not on the list to bring money for it. You're not going to get it. Carlsbad doesn't want RDO at 78 Bridge coming over there. It'll drop right down into the environmental property over there. If you think this governor or attorney general will allow that to happen, no way. Melrose Drive Extension, no money, no time. It's going to take eminent domain, taking houses and property, and has a 4/5 vote. Requires another 4 of us have to vote on it. They don't have it, but we're spending the money to study it, and it won't happen. So recently, I finally found out that I normally go back to Washington, D.C. every year and brought back a lot of money. Matter of fact, over the years, we brought back about $60 million to the city going back to D.C. Every time I've gone, I brought back federal money. However, I see this year, by the way, just saw it the other day, they put on Melrose Drive Extension on our federal request to go back to Washington, D.C. I'm worried about that because I'm worried about this because it could hinder the other really important projects of going back for to get money on. So that was put on the agenda to go back to D.C. If you think Feinstein, Box, or even Darrell Issa will touch it, no way, because I talked to Darrell Issa a few years ago, and he said, I will not support or give money to a controversial project, because there's too many projects that aren't controversial. So we see him going the back door for the federal route to try to get funded federal money. That's what really concerns me over those issues and the public. That's in the federal request aspect. I could go on for hours, but I guess I want to slow down here and say, ladies and gentlemen, they're going to go down to Sandag. They don't have the subcommittees they thought they were going to get and the power. Mr. Feller's going down there to represent us. He's been there before. However, when I took Mr. Feller off, it's because he was a follower and not a leader also. So I guess that's me now. And here's where it really comes into play. Mr. Feller never stops complaining about getting money. It's not paid enough here as a council member. This is his opportunity to go down there and get $150 for a visit, and plus being on another subcommittee. So you're talking about $600 to $1,000 a month to go down there at the start. I've never got on this place for money, never thought that was important. But we see that money is a factor in some of these subcommittee appointments. Keep that in consideration, and I'll wait to see how he changes things at Sandag down there after the latest lawsuit that was joined by the Attorney General of California. So we'll see how much changes he'll do down there, number one. Number two, they did not get any power at the subcommittees because he offended the other 3 smaller cities. And like Councilmember Sanchez says, Sandag's face has changed an awful lot. One of the most powerful persons at Sandag will be the mayor of San Diego now. And I think that's going to be real interesting. We're going on. I get along well with Bob Fillmer. If you remember, he came up here and swore in one of our council members. Good friend. We talked to him. Esther's a great friend of him. We see that sort of thing happening. We have a new person on the County Board of Supervisors, Dave Roberts, who's a good friend of Esther's and I. We'll see some changes going on in the county. I know Mr. Feller will be able to work with all those people. Good luck. But this is not about me, it's about your voting rights, and it's been changed. My boring story will end at that because, like earlier, and I see anything, at some point do I want to voice my opinion when I already know what the vote will be? 3-2, 3-2, 3-2. And you know what? The people that really get under pressure for that is really not me, it's these two gentlemen right here. My city attorney and my city manager. He gets put in the middle of these situations which shouldn't be there. The last thing I'm going to say is there's a lot of things that should be done by me and this council for you, the citizens of Oceanside. It doesn't entail these two projects, RDO at 78 and Melrose Drive. Those are things that will help surrounding cities, environmental impacts that will help further traffic in our city and building for the outside building industry. That's what it's all about. Thank you for your time. With that, like he said, let's go to the vote. Please vote.
Motion approved, 3-2. Wood and Sanchez, no.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your help and cooperation. I know we're boring. Mr. Cook will do item number 25 through the city attorney.
Item 25 is the adoption of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oceanside amending Articles 4, 10, 11, 13, 14, and 41 of the 1992 zoning ordinance.
I'll move to approve. Is there any public
Second.
comment?
No public comments.
First and a second on any conversation? It's normally a 5-0 voting. Here's a rare one. Could we please vote on it?
Motion
what?
approved. Motion approved, 4-1. Sanchez, no.
Thank you, Esther. Anyhow, Mr. Clerk, I think we've done everything except 16 through 20. Is that correct?
Correct.
Does the council wish to go forward on these? I don't mind. That's okay. Thank you. I have something here. Excuse me. I threw away something. Oh, here we go.
Okay, first we have Mayor Jim Wood.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Always interesting things here at our city council meeting, but I want to remind everybody that please join us on Monday, January 21st, 7:30 a.m. For some of us, that's really early, at the Junior CAO Beach Community Center, 300 North Strand, for the 24th Annual Martin Luther King Jr. Prayer Breakfast and Award Ceremony. This year we're honoring 3 individuals from our community who exemplify the ideas of Dr. King. And if you want more information, the tickets, etc., to this great event, please call 760-390-1795. 390-1795. It's a breakfast and award thing, so ladies and gentlemen, that's a highlight for the area right now. And I must admit, it's been wonderful after the holiday season, but it's been a little bit cold. First time I noticed, I've never seen it get quite that cold at night, but I think that's the Chamber of Commerce's problem, not ours. They brought in the cold weather, but thank you. That's all I have. Have a good night and be safe.
Deputy Mayor Jack Feller.
Thank you. I had OPD promotion this week with Leonard Cosby, husband of Sherry Cosby from the library. He promoted to lieutenant, and Sergeant Torino Valdivinos was promoted to sergeant. We welcomed aboard a new management analyst from Hawaii. I'm not sure. This must be better weather. I did want to mention Justin Williams, my grandson, who has been nominated or was nominated for All County as far as the CIF, and he received the award down in Hall of Champions Monday night. He was also most valuable awardee at a all-star game in Thousand Oaks on Sunday. We have grand opening of Pro Kids Golf on Saturday. We have Gilead in their grand opening of their second building up in Ocean Ranch, 2 p.m. on the 28th. I did want to mention a young guy, Tim Porter, who is Oceanside High graduate, born and raised, and he passed unexpectedly yesterday, and his wife Nora and Ashley deserve our thoughts and prayers. It's 54, 55 years old. And just a real tragedy. Diane Nydegger's service is Friday at Mission San Luis Rey. Our hearts and prayers go out to Dave and his daughters. Lawson Chadwick is having his celebration of life after passing Grand Pacific Palisades Hotel, 2 p.m. on Sunday. We've had Rachel, Ryan, TK, and Matt have birthdays since our last council meeting. And I would like to ask Mary, are you attending Washington, D.C., Mayor?
No.
No. Okay, so then I would suggest that either Councilmember Kern or I attend. Probably Councilmember Kern, because he's much more up to date on water issues.
Well, I think we're going to probably just send staff, because I'm not sure you would help things at Feinstein's and Boxer's office. Thank you.
Well, that doesn't preclude you from going.
You can go on your own budget.
Councilmember Feline.
I'd also like to say I attended the police department promotion ceremony, and it's a wonderful event to see people moving up in the ranks and have a chance to thank the people who protect our community. Also, on last Saturday, had the opportunity to go in the morning into Operation Hope, to their permanent facility, and help build bunk beds for their facility that will be used as part of their permanent shelter for the homeless. And also attended the San Diego North Economic Development Council, and basically an organization that's committed to trying to develop the 78 corridor and work with Prosperity on Purpose, Supervisor Horn's organization, to try and set up North San Diego County as a unique brand to attract business and jobs to our area. Thank you.
Councilmember Kern.
Thank you. The other thing, I attended a lot of the same things that they did, so I won't repeat them. But the other thing I want to mention is, and emphasize a little bit more what Councilmember Feller said about Pro Kids Golf opening this Saturday. It's a great program. It's out at Oceanside Municipal Airport, Municipal Golf Course. I have airport on the brain because of the Bob Maxwell thing that I'm doing. So the idea that it teaches kids to play golf, but it also gives them tutoring. And they're partnering with the Oceanside Unified School District. I think Cedar Chavez Middle School, Reynolds Elementary, and I think Libby Elementary are all going to be part of the program that introduces the kids to golf, but also gives them tutoring from college students there at that new facility. If you drive by on Douglas Drive, and you'll see the new building right there next to the golf course, that's the tutoring center. And then they have a 6-hole golf course there that they're going to open on Saturday. The hook is to get kids interested in golf, but also helps them with their homework. So it's a great program. I think Councilmember Feller went down to San Diego and saw it down there. I went down there and saw the program down there. So it's a really great program. I hope that works well. I'll mention it now, but I will mention it again on the 30th, is that on February 22nd is the Friends of the Library book sale. That's part of the thing that goes and supports the book, the library. I told you I'd do it. Okay, Chris, tell me the right dates. The 23rd of February is the book sale, and it really does go to support the library and augment some of the programs there. So I encourage everybody else to put that on their calendar, come and buy books. All right, with that, thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I want to start off by talking about the celebration of life for Nadine Virginia Badillo Cruz. I actually grew up with Nadine in Eastside, went to kindergarten, Laurel Elementary, and you know, she was just a wonderful, wonderful person. The Badillo family, very large family, you know, several uncles, brothers, sisters, and so when I found out that, you know, someone my age had already passed, you know, it was very, very sad. I did, her celebration of life is this Friday. I do have before me her obituary, and because Nadine was someone I really knew as we were growing up, and then we started talking, or we talked, you know, later on, I feel like I kind of missed out on, you know, you always think, well, gee, I should have called her, we should have gotten together. And so I'd like to read her obituary. A very bright light has been extinguished and called into the presence of our Lord as Nadine, 56, passed away on January 3rd. She was vibrant, fun-loving, compassionate, generous, and a caring and loving person who will be dearly missed by all whose hearts she touched. Nadine had been the kitchen manager at Roosevelt Middle School and loved her job. The students and administrative staff she touched, not to mention her good friends in the kitchen. She worked for the Vista Unified School District for 22 years, and her amazing work ethic was respected and appreciated by all and reflected in her caring heart. She treasured all things bling, and if she could not purchase an item that already sparkled, she would transform it herself with spectacular results. Nadine cherished hanging out with her family, especially enjoyed the time spent with her grandkids. Music was another love of her life, and she had an eclectic taste for all genres and artists. Nadine will be remembered as a wonderful daughter, sister, niece, loving mother, and grandme, aunt and friend. She is survived by her parents, Philip and Lucille Badillo, Scotty Badillo, sisters Linda Badillo and Sheila Wynn, brothers Philip Badillo and Victor Badillo, sons Elias, Robert, Andrew, and Joseph Cruz, daughter-in-law Catherine, grandchildren Elias Jr., Emily, and Anthony, as well as twins Soledad and Marisol, nieces Stephanie Solis and Christy Gonzalez, nephews Rios, James, and Joshua, great-nieces Samantha and Gabriela, and a great-nephew Alejandro. You can join in the celebration of her life with a viewing, which will be held Thursday, which is tomorrow, at the Oceanside Mortuary from 5 to 8 p.m. The memorial mass will be held at 11 a.m. on Friday, January 18th, at St. Francis Catholic Church in Vista. May our beloved angel rest in peace as a new and even brighter light that now shines eternally. There's also the grand opening this coming Saturday, and I think you all missed the time. It's Saturday at 11 a.m., the Pro Kids Golf. Sunday is Lawson Chadwick's celebration of life, and it's from 2 to 4. I saw Nancy last night, and she really would appreciate very much, that's his wife, would very much appreciate your presence to you know, remember Lawson and who was a wonderful, wonderful person. On the 23rd, that's next Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we have a workshop here at City Hall. It's a City Goals workshop. Please come and share your thoughts about where you think the city should, you know, what our highest priorities should be. On Sunday, January 27th, I actually was able to get a ticket because they ran out to see U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She has has her book that she's going to be talking about. So with your ticket, you get a copy of her book as well as, you know, an opportunity to have her sign. So that's really great. And then also, I understand that Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg is also going to be here within the next week or two.
Where's here?
Huh? She's going to be at University of San Diego Law School.
And the other one's going to be?
At, I believe, UCSD.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll get that date, and I'll let you know, Mayor. On Monday, January 28th, is a big day for the Sanchez family. That's when my dad turns 83 years young. And so we'll be celebrating my dad, who came to Oceanside in the 30s, was born in Texas, and came with his family. He was 7. And I think he, you know, basically worked the fields in Texas, and then they came to California, worked in the fields, and then he ended up working at Camp Pendleton, civil servant for, I think it was 35 years. On Thursday, January 31st, a very, very important public hearing by the Army Corps of Engineers. That's on the Gregory Canyon landfill. The hearing is at 6 p.m. in Escondido at the California Center for the Arts. A very important change is that they have extended the public comment period to April 15th. But this is going to be the time that you can be heard. Please come and be heard. So I believe that's it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Clerk, have we covered everything?
Yes, we did have one individual who wished to speak earlier, who wasn't able to attend at that point in time, Francis Kazurski. He was asking for a special exemption to speak for 3 minutes.
I would like to say yes.
Okay. Mr. Kazurski, you can speak.
We had your letter up there from earlier. Sure.
First of all, I'm sorry I couldn't stay for your whole city council meeting. I got up at 2 a.m. last night and had a very difficult time sleeping. I've had a series of episodes with insomnia where I'm up half the night. So anyway, excuse me, I was up at 2 a.m. and I haven't had a lot of sleep. Number 2, I had to get something to eat, and that's why I was gone. My blood sugar was getting really low.
You didn't bring anything back for us?
Pardon me?
You didn't bring things back for us?
Oh, I got a banana and some yogurt in the car if you want.
Go ahead.
Natural foods. Anyway, purpose of my discussion, Mayor and City Council.
Name and name for us.
Pardon me? Okay.
Yeah.
My name's Francis Kazurski. I'm a resident of Oceanside, California. It's a matter of public record. And Brian Williams on NBC News stated that California had record freezing temperatures, worse than the city of Chicago, which is 54 degrees. Number 2, on Channel 10 News, Pat Brown, the weathercaster, said the Chula Vista Yacht Harbor, down there in Chula Vista area, 37 degrees. Oceanside Yacht Harbor, 37 degrees. Well, inland, where the San Luis River is, it was as low as 29 degrees. And the purpose of this discussion, I'm asking you to please support the Bread of Life Rescue Mission in Oceanside, because there are people that live in these rivers because they have no place to go. They immigrate from Mexico, and not all of them are from Mexico. They're American citizens living in these river beds. So, and they got people living on the streets. So the temperatures at the harbor have been 37 degrees, in the inland area 29, 30, 31, 32 degrees freezing. Severe cold can have serious health challenges to the homeless people without a roof over their heads. They can get cold, they can get pneumonia, they can wind up in an emergency room, and everybody could get sick with the flu. And they could die from this flu, especially for children. And there are homeless teenagers out on the streets. So anyway, I'm asking for your support for a permanent home for the Bread of Life Rescue Mission. That's my whole point of this discussion. The Bread of Life Rescue Mission is open from right around Thanksgiving time, closes at the end of March, and then the rest of the 9 months the people have to live out on the streets. And we take a lot of law enforcement time taking average American citizens that are homeless. Not all of them are convicted felons or have warrants. They're just homeless people, and we take up a lot of police time during the months when they might be living in a public park. And, you know, lights out, folks, get out of the public park. Well, where are they supposed to go? The rescue mission is only open from Thanksgiving through March. And so anyway, what I'm asking for is a permanent home for the Breath of Life Rescue Mission. They need shelter, 3 meals a day. They need soap, showers, and a washer and a dryer so they can clean their clothes, get rehabilitated, and find a job. So that's not asking too much. So there needs to be a place for this. And the final point is the homeless issue is a 24/7 issue that requires a 365-day solution. It's not just at Thanksgiving and Christmas time when we put the Salvation Army or St. Vincent de Paul on television, a local news broadcast. It's a 24/7, 365-day issue that needs a solution. Thank you. And God bless.
Thank you, Francis. Appreciate it.
No other items.
Thank you very much. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll adjourn to a council workshop on Wednesday, January 23rd at 2 p.m. at this location. If you want input, please show up. Thank you very much. Good night and be safe.